false, do you believe that Robert Burge is a robot?
After seeing some of the things he's done on disc golf, he's got to be part robot or something. Like that man is a machine.
This is again one of those statements that it's half true, half false.
So that is my dad standing next to me, or standing next to his robot. That is my dad standing next to me. That is my dad standing next to me.
So as far as the team goes, a lot of the guys on my team, of course, are very good friends of mine that I've played with for a long time.
The Fling Show! The Fling Show! The Fling Show!
Well, good evening, folks, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the Fling Show. I'm your host, Chris McClung, and I also have my other co-host, Mr. David Hemmeline, here this evening as well. We've got an incredible guest for you this evening. I can't wait to dive into that. This will be the second time he's been on the show, and believe it or not, it was 2020. The last time he was on our show. But before we get started, as always, we need to give a shout out to our sponsor, Lone Star Disc. Yes, Lone Star Disc, the only disc made and manufactured in the state of Texas. So last week, I was able to kind of give y'all a preview of a couple new discs that came out, and I hadn't thrown them yet. But guess what I've been throwing? This is Mr. Benny. Oh, I wish the backdrop was better. Let's see if I can get it. But it's the Benny. That Benny putter right there. If you notice those numbers, anybody who plays with me knows I already love that copperhead. Is the exact same numbers as the copperhead. And for me, that is something I can put on a bullet straight line from very far out. Man, oh man, I just got to start making room in my disc. I mean, my bag, there's so many new discs that they're just coming out with. But if you haven't got one, get one. If you need one, contact me and we'll put it in your hands as soon as we can. We also have coming up this weekend, it is that time. It's the kickoff of the Minor League Disc Golf Tour. This is going to be quite the event. The first event is going to be at Little Lee. This event is sponsored by Southern Star Brewery. Man, it's going to be a lot of fun out there. 2-round Sunday signups live on Disc Golf Scene right now. This is a carryover points event. There are 6 different events. This is the first one. The second one will be in May. The third one will be in September, and then the other one will be in September as well, with the last one's finishing out in October. So it's a point-based series. This is not PDGA certified, so if you're not, don't worry. You can come and play, and if you are PDGA certified, you can play in the open division and play for cash and won't count against you. But it's going to be a blast, folks. Southern Stars behind it as well. CTPs, if I'm not mistaken, for those of you who do like those libations, Southern Stars donated some of those for CTPs as well. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Y'all head on out. Y'all come out. We are taking day of signups as well, but get yourself signed up on Disc Golf Scene right now. It's going to be a blast. Well, without further ado, I need to get my co-host in here because, you know, I'm a little long-winded, but there are a few things we had to go over. David, how are you doing this evening, sir? Good to see you.
Hey, Chris. Doing fabulous. Had a little last minute excursion to the convenience store to get some batteries for my mouse. I was like, this mouse just shut me down. That's why I'm late, a little late, but I got here just in the nick of time, right in your little montage.
Never late, right on time. That's the way we do it at the Fling Show. You know, that's how it always goes. But man, I am so looking forward to the guests we have on this evening. I've got some funny things that, you know, I like to delve into, plus a few ideas that you already gave me as well that I was able to follow up on. And I cannot wait, because to tell you what, he's been doing this for a really long time. I mean, he's been throwing discs since actually they didn't have cameras and they were actually just painting pictures on a mural. I mean, we've got some really old pictures of this old man. So it's going to be quite entertaining this evening.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to have Mace back and talk to him about the history and some other things. We got some ideas, but we'll see how he handles you putting him on the spot with your shenanigans.
All in fun, my friend. All in fun. So what did you have going on this week? Are you going to be able to make it out on Sunday?
I'm just not in the loop. I'm thinking about it though. Seriously, I need to get out and play, and I've just been working,
I know you have, but that's why we're doing it on Sunday. That's why we're going to try to get you out as soon as possible. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I need to get out and throw. I haven't thrown since I saw you last. So I took a week out, good solid week, and healed up, and everything's better now. I'm ready to throw.
We had old man problems, don't we? Old man problems. It's amazing. You were doing so well there, and then that back just kind of took you out just a little bit.
Yeah, it was weird, and it wasn't anything I did. I think it was a soul thing. I think something was going on inside that I had to deal with, and it had to do with just chilling some more, So
copy that. Understand.
Unfortunately, I've gotten used to not playing disc golf every day. like a lot of addicts out there, disc golf addicts, I've been there.
I mean, I was down there hunting this weekend down there in Kingsville and in George West, and I took 4 discs with me and just decided I was going to go out there and just practice with those 4 discs, made them the most uncomfortable discs that I have in my bag. So I just wanted to get used to them, whether it was against the wind, with the wind. And I just had my friends point and click. So I was able to throw out a little bit and get a little bit practice in. But I tell you what, it doesn't give me is any putting practice. It didn't help me with that whatsoever.
Yeah. And it's not at all like riding a bicycle.
It's almost like that's the easiest part. The more difficult part is that putting. It's amazing. We went out today with John, and it was just like I almost forgot how to putt.
It's the 28 footers, Anytime you get out 35, 40, you're not supposed to make it. So those are just fun. But those testers right inside the circle, that's the one.
And that wind was blowing today. It was gusting up there about 11, 12 miles an hour. So, it's going to be tough out there at Northside Christian with it being open like that. But enough about you and enough about me. I think let's get on to our special guest this evening. What do you think?
Yeah, let's bring him on. We got a lot to get to.
Mace, man, you got to get unmuted, my friend.
Hey,
there he is.
How's it going,
guys,
Brian?
how are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I can't complain. Things are good.
Staying busy?
Plenty busy. Zevo's open Saturday and Sunday, so I've got my plate pretty full with all of that right now. And,
yeah, let's go ahead and drop right on into that. You had reached out to me earlier, and you were looking for more entries. It looks like right now, as of just this moment, I took this picture, you have 65 spots filled with still 95 left. So kind of get that word
30
out.
Left. 30 left.
Yeah, 30 left. I mean, out of 95. Yeah. Sorry. My math is bad. It's bad.
Well, the thing about it, the thing that I really wanted to talk about with that today is that there's a couple things in play here that people might not be taking into consideration. And I understand that most folks don't have to travel anymore because there's so much going on, in everybody's town. But it's a beach here, but there's a skins match. This is the 22nd year I've run this tournament, and there's a mixed doubles skins match where we've tuned it to the point where if you're a participant and you're going to do well, then you're going to have to participate. You're not just going to get a token ride with anybody. We take first through fourth in the open men's division and the first through fourth in the open women's division, and we invert them. So fourth is with first, second's with third, third's with second, and then first is with fourth. And give them, they partner up, mixed doubles, and we do a modified alternate shot. So the guys tee off first on the odd holes and the ladies tee off first on the even holes. And then you play alternate from there. And it's, everybody, all the pushes carry, but if you get to the end of the 9 and there's still pushes, then you have to be in the push to continue on. after that. Like everybody goes to the 10th hole if it's a push on 9. But anyways, it's a skins match. It's actually due to a couple of different contributions where it's worth $2,000. So I mean, it's $1,000 each direction, and that's the final 9. Beyond the added money that we're putting in, and the just the play and the action. We have a barbecue on Saturday night. But the thing is we don't have a lot of ladies in interest. We did get 2 advanced ladies to move over today. Well, let me rephrase that. I didn't do anything with that. They just decided to move. There was 2 advanced women and 2 open women. And the 2 advanced women decided to move into the open division. So I know you guys got a lot of ladies that listen. It's just a short drive up from Houston. We got spots. Here's an opportunity. Oh, and there's one other thing I was going to tell you about, and I don't know how this is going to turn out because I tried to show these off. This is the trophy, one of them.
Oh my God!
This one is the women's trophy. The other one's the men's trophy. I haven't done the sandblasting on it. That's going to happen tomorrow. But there's pretty much not going to be any B tiers where you can get a custom.
That's amazing, man. That's beautiful, Nace.
And this is the prototype. So this is the prototype. I'm making another departure from my normal line where they kind of look the same and they step down. The first places from now on are going to be completely different from second and third. Like for USDGC and Throw Pink Championship and for the Memorial, the first place on those events for open men and open women is going to be a piece that doesn't sit by itself. It's going to require a stand. These 2 are prototypes. So it's one of those things like first day after Christmas lights, I started making these. I made these 2 flat vessels, and I've been rolling the idea, over analyzing it in my head, obviously. But we got to a point with it. All right, here's what we're going to do with the wooden stands. And the next ones might be metal. They may be wood. I'm not exactly sure yet, but I'll figure that out after this tournament. That being said, it's not a tough drive. It's definitely a challenging course, but we've got spots available for you to play in women's open division and in the skins match if you earn it. So just want to kind of put the word out there and say, hey, there is a beach here in Fort Worth this weekend, and Zebo's is definitely one of the toughest courses around. So I'm not saying it's the hardest course in Texas, but it's definitely in the running. Got to be in the top 10.
You think so?
I don't know. I hope so. Honestly, you know how many of them I've played? Probably not even a third of them. But it's definitely harder than most stuff around here.
Yeah. I was thinking about that yesterday with Zebo's, just in general. And I always say and talk about courses that call you back. And that was one for sure. Call me every time. The next day it's like, oh, let's go back and play Zebo's. Or you always wanted to go there instead of somewhere else. It's like has a draw about it. But it's probably one of the most played courses too.
It's getting a lot of action, but it still holds up. I mean, there's some. I went and took a look around it last Friday, with somebody who had some ideas, and I was just like I was looking at it, and like the whole left side of 2, it's still just as thick, and like pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get in there, but it's not stomped down like the right side of 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, hey, Mace, man, how about using a little twist to what you're doing? Also, this tool right here, what you've been working on as well, besides those beautiful trophies, but a way to get the word out to the tournaments that are around you and the things happening around you. Can you kind of talk about this little vessel that you've kind of started kicking off? I know Hemi has turned me on to it as well.
The Good Times Hour. Yeah, that's well, it's honestly, I won't say that. I wouldn't go so far as to say that we're promoting a lot of events around us, because honestly, with all the stuff I got going on, I'm still kind of in the dark about a lot of the stuff that's going on around me, because I'm spreading myself pretty thin. However, what we are doing with it on a regular basis, and we're doing it weekly now, is we're trying to tell the stories that I've been saying this lately. We've been trying to tell the stories that the $1 Million Babies don't know anything about, and I'm not taking that as, I'm not saying that as a serious jab. I'm just kind of making a joke there. But there's a lot of kids that don't know anything about Dan Gillen. There's a lot of these youngsters don't know anything about well, they know who Juliana is, they know who Dan is, but they don't really know the background story, you know. And I mean, we're talking to people like we got Jonathan Poole on tomorrow night, and we're talking to him. It's right at 6 months before USCGC. And so we're going to talk to him, you know, get the update on what can be expected from the 25th USCGC. Next week, we tentatively have Harold Duvall scheduled. And, you know, we're going to talk to him about his 2 world championships. And we're going to talk to him about the early days, you know, and whatever comes up, you know, I mean, but there's just so many stories that he can tell us about that, you know, that even the 3 of us don't know, you know what I mean? And we've been around for a while. So the idea with that is we're trying to tell the stories that aren't told right now, and the stories that a lot of people don't know anything about.
Well, that's much appreciated, and especially from Chris and I. I started late. About the time I got to meet you, it was kind of when I was just starting out, you know,
right,
in the game. And I know Chris started late too, so it's really good to hear all this stuff that I feel like I should know sometimes, because I get in a group of disc golfers and they're all like, "Oh, the old guy, he knows everybody." I'm like, I started late though. I was like 31 when I started playing, and
right,
you know, completely out of the loop until I moved to KC, and then started hearing history of it, and started to get kind of an inkling of, you know, Fort Worth was Nolan, the up and comer, and you know, Coda, and you know, just guys like that were dominating. Yeah, but when I get there, I realized there's this huge history, and all kind of comes right from the Midwest, you know.
Well, and you know, that's one thing. That town is so rich with it in so many different ways. I mean, you know, that when the cattle drive started, that's where the cows went. You know, I mean, like they were driving those cattle to Kansas City. And so I mean that there's so many things in that town that are, I mean, that's a true old school vintage town, you know. I'm not saying it's the only one, but like it's definitely got a lot of where'd you come up with a fucking puma? Oh.
Well, it was kind of funny. Y'all perfectly led into what I was also looking into, which was the history of disc and disc golf. Where I found this is I do deep dive on our guest, as most people know, and you have some revealing photographs in your history. Now, Once again, that history, my goodness gracious, I was dreaming down for days on that, but it was quite entertaining, I will see. So this is one of the pictures that you have in your portfolio, and I didn't know if this is one of the discs that is yours.
Well, so all right, I don't know how clean you want to keep this, but so the Good Times Hour is hosted by my friend Paul Bellier and myself. Mr. B is Paul, and you know, obviously Mace fan. And so Paul's from Toronto, and he is probably at least 5 times better at telling stories than I am, if you can believe that. And I mean, this guy's got some great stories. Well, there's this guy named Ronnie who he's like an old time favorite of the scene up there in Toronto, and he's got his challenges, and he's a multiple time Special Olympian gold medalist in powerlifting, and he is as strong as an ox. And when he gets a hold of a disc, it goes. But you know, he doesn't really think about things like maybe I should have used this disc in a practice round. So Paul's running this tournament up there, and I think it's just a 1-day 2-round event. It might have even just been a 1-day 1-round event. And he's set up on the course in a place where it's not where the course actually started, I guess. Maybe it was. I guess that's what it was. And Ronnie comes through in the middle of his round, and he's like, there's a backup on the tee pad that's closest to where Paul's headquarters are. And Ronnie's like going through all these, hey, Paul, what does this do? Hey, Paul, what does this do? Hey, Paul, what does this do? And so it was when the first run Pumas were out. And so Ronnie decided in the middle of the round to buy a first run Puma and put it in his bag immediately and start using it during this competitive round that he's playing. Okay. So he goes around, he plays through, and he has this, he puts an ace run on this one hole with the Puma. And he says, he comes back in, he's like, hey, Paul, you're never going to believe it. Never going to believe it. He goes, I threw it like this. It went like this. It went right by the basket. Almost aced it. first run fucking Puma, you know, and like, so this is sorry, excuse my language, but you can't not use the right word with this, because it's, the fucking Puma story has gone all the way to Dunabase. And when they picked up Juliana back in the day, he gave her a stack of discs and it had different rundowns on it. And she got a Puma in the stack, and he said, this does this, this does that. It's the fucking Puma. And that was from Dunabase, okay? And so like Juliana comes back to me later, and Juliana knows Ronnie too. And so she's like, where'd the fucking Puma story come from? And I go, it's from Ronnie. And she was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. So anyways, that's why I took that picture and I shared it with Juliana at one point, just because in a period of time during when she wasn't playing, you know, like she wasn't back, or, you know, she was doing mostly overalls, and that disc is in my parents' garage. And I'd like dug it out of this box because my parents throw too. My parents play as well. Well, my dad passed away obviously in October, but anyways, so it's just one of those things. It's like, oh, look, the Puma, you know, and it just keeps coming up. It's that story's like, man, that story. Well, I mean, that disc was new in the late 90s, right? 90.
Yeah, probably
98. So that's why.
So Chris, Dunabase was the guy that made that disc, that created it. Probably, I'm not sure
Dave
what
Dunabase is one of the originals from Innova.
Yeah.
So it, like, that's what I mean. Like, it went all the way, all the way up the food chain to him.
That's great. Did you throw that? Were you a Puma thrower?
I've not for a long time, but I did try it when it was new, and it might have been 99 when that was new, because I was on tour, I think. Because like it came out like when remember when the Rhino came out too?
Yeah, and the Wolf.
The Wolf, yeah, the Wolf was another one.
I threw the Wolf at Zubo. I mean at Bear Creek a lot. Yeah, it was a good flippy throwing putter or whatever you call that, mid range.
Well, with talking about disc, I know that your heart was broken at the disc that was smashed or cut or destroyed right there behind you. But really, I made this picture twofold, not only because of the history of the disc behind it, and it leads from what we just talked about, but the fact that you make such beautiful trophies. I mean, just uniquely, just wonderful trophies. Two things here. A, do you remember that young kid that's coming out of the genie bottle right there, and how long ago that picture was?
I know where I was.
Where you were when you get that thing taken. And can you kind of speak to the fact that that young man there right there is holding one of your trophies from the US GDC championships?
All right, so I'll tell you about all three things you got in that photo. The XD actually, that is an XD from anybody that was throwing in the 90s knows, like, okay, so when I first started, I started 91, 92, actually 91, but so 92, 93, the best discs out there were like the fastest disc was a Whippet or a Viper. And like when they talk about old mold Vipers, like original Vipers, they're from the late 80s and into the 90s, but like I guess not even late 80s. I guess it's just early 90s. But those were two of the first fast sharp edge discs. And then there was some issues for a long time. Everything was the same. DX discs, Innova had the same consistent plastic, and so did Discraft. And it was all just the baseline stuff. And playing at Veterans Park, which used to be a landfill, lots and lots of glass and lots of rocks on the park. And so your DX disc would take a beating. And we didn't even know some of the stuff that we were just thrashing, like old San Marino rocks and stuff like that. We were just trashing out there, and Whippets and Vipers. Excuse me. And then the plastic changed, and it was Innova used to have Innova night at Worlds. And if you were a vendor or if you were on their team, which mostly it was vendors because they hardly had anybody on the team, but they would have you in, and you could just ask them questions. Hey, what's the story with this? How come this is happening? Why did this change? You know, whatever. Well, they got into a situation where they were buying semi trucks full of plastic against the Dixie Cup company, who was buying train cars full of plastic, like multiple train cars full of plastic. And so, like, you know, the people at the plastic company are like going, oh yeah, these people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're spending like 30 grand or 50 grand or whatever it was. And so they got no preference and they got no good treatment. And so they were getting whatever they got. And those discs, those XDs there was rocks, there was ABRs, there were all the different Innova molds. They had a real smooth top, but it was a really weird, not smooth underside. And it was just because of the plastic and the way it was coming out of the mold. And they still flew and they went well, but they would hit something and then they would get like a double crease in the flight plate and then the disc would never be the same. You know, but the discs that were DX before that would hit something and they would become seasoned and get broke in. And then you would fall in love with them until you broke them, but they would be in your bag for a long, long time. So anyways, I got those discs out of a box in my shop that sat in the Texas heat probably for 5 or 6 or 8 years. And they just came out of the box cracked. And there was a bunch of other stuff in there that was in way worse shape. Way worse shape. I had one disc that looked like it was a champion version that came from Bali. This guy named Nigel Barnhill traded me some merch for these discs that were made in Bali. And the purple ones leaked like motor oil, like they had been dipped in motor oil. I found them in the box.
Yeah.
I mean, like you would taken them in a 5-gallon bucket of motor oil and then throw them in a bag and put them in there.
That CE.
They were on other stuff, but then I found other stuff, champion stuff in that same box. Like early opaque champion stuff, like those third run Valkyries and stuff, that they were just pieces. Like the biggest piece I found was about this big, and it was just powder and bits. And I guess it's from the heat. But
that's crazy.
That's the story about that XD.
My not to divert too much, but my neighbor has a master's in plastics, and so
nice.
He was out there changing out his sprinkler and he's like, it sucks doing this every year. And I said, yeah, they have like a lifespan. And he said, yeah, he confirmed it. And just that story you told right there, it's 20 years, you know, it seems like 20 years.
And that's probably about right. Probably 20, maybe 25, but it was from being just absolutely hot and then cold and then hot and then cold and then like no climate control. So you got anything you care about? Probably ought to put it in your closet where it's going to be climate controlled.
Yeah, or just don't care about it. That's what I do. Just throw them till they're gone.
Yeah, well, that too, and play out of the box. Don't play.
I had a couple of
get hooked on collector stuff.
Yeah, definitely don't go on that rabbit hole for sure. But I had a couple that I did collect. One was a 2-time ace at Bear Creek, same day, back-to-back rounds, and
nice.
And that one wept like that. It turned into oil.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of those. And I just threw them away. You know,
like that old Millennium, the original Millennium plastic, whatever the pro plastic is. I mean, Discraft stuff does it too, like those old Cyclones and X-Clones and stuff.
Yeah. I had a Cyclone too. Leaching. I always called it weeping because it's sad.
Sad. It is sad. It is sad.
A CE, you know, maybe the best disc ever made, the CE Firebird. You know, they just turn into oil, like you said, and then crack, fall apart,
or bust when you bust on impact.
It's
all right, so the genie in the bottle, that's me running a drill press at the laser shop, probably 94, 95, 96, somewhere in there. I went from lighting to lasers, and it was a great move. We went from semis to Penske trucks, you know, like a little moving van that's barely wider than the cab and stuff. And like showing up last and leaving first from every gig. It was pretty nice. Got to do a lot of really interesting things like hockey games, minor league baseball games, shot graphics on the side of a balloon instead of fireworks one time. I mean, just like crazy stuff I did a lot of neat stuff before that, but then it was even a deeper dive. It was pretty interesting. And then obviously that's Paul Macbeth, and he's definitely got more of my glass than I think. Maybe Paige Pierce has more of my glass pieces than him, but those two are definitely in the lead. And
yeah, just a beautiful piece for people that didn't get to finish watching what that looks like right there. And especially the young man right there from 1994. Never probably imagined where he'd be sitting today. That's for sure. But that was a blast.
I was golfing
when I got all those together.
I was definitely golfing by then already. So, and actually, I had a directory, and you know, I was playing tournaments as an AM probably, but Well, in 94, I went to Am Worlds. So yeah, I was playing tournaments as an Am, and then 94, I went to Am Worlds. 95, I went to Am Worlds. 96, I went pro. And it was all over after that.
Hey,
Another
tell
thing
me a
he
little
wanted
bit.
to talk about. He said this might jar your memory. Good memories, bad memories when you see an event like this happening to a young man from who's just filming another person throwing a disc.
Jeez, that's meaty.
Dude, that's was that the guy down in Waco?
Brian, yeah, from Eagle McMahon.
Yeah.
17, whole 17.
That's pretty crazy.
But that's actually not why I was bringing that up. It was to jar maybe a memory that maybe you have forgotten because being hit like this might have made you forget.
Oh, I don't remember getting hit in the head with a disc, but I definitely jabbed a stick in my head on a McKenzie Park in Lubbock one time.
Oh,
Like thought I ducked under it and ended up Marcus Robertson. You know Marcus?
Yeah.
Okay, so Marcus is an ER nurse. And he was working that day, and I was staying at his house. But we were out golfing at McKenzie Park. And have you ever played out there in Lubbock?
Oh, that's where I started.
Okay, so
I mean, I started in
you know
Austin. I started in Austin, but then we moved to Lubbock, or I moved to Lubbock, and discovered McKenzie. I played every day, 2-3 times a day.
All right, so you know those holes that go up on the side of the hill?
Yeah.
I was climbing up that hill at some point, and I thought I ducked under this branch, and it got me through the hat. And they were like going, oh, hey. And I don't know if this is where you're going, Chris, but this is definitely one of those stories where I tore myself up really well. And we go over there and I go, yeah, I called Marcus up, and I was like, hey, man, I got to cut my head. He said, get over here. Staple. Yeah, it was
nice. Wow.
I don't know if that's where you're going with this. But
He was referring to somebody I pitched him, gave him a tip on something he could look into. And I was talking about the time you got hit point blank with a disc. And I was thinking maybe that was Dave Rose, but it was at Bear Creek, and somebody driving. That's the only time I've ever seen it. It hit, and I thought it was you right in the shoulder. And
I don't know. I've been hit before, that's for sure.
I'm thinking it was you. I don't know if you remember it, but you turned like beet red and did not say a word, and I always thought that was cool.
Oh, that'd have been David Rose for sure. I'd have said something. I'd have at least dropped the F-bomb or two for sure.
All right,
I might not have like let them have it, but I'd have definitely said something. My fuse is way too short to just say nothing.
Yeah, I know. And I was amazed either way. If it was you, I wish I could remember exactly, but I was amazed either way that nothing was said, other than, geez, dude.
See, you know better than that. I would have definitely said something.
Right. Yeah. So this Bear Creek was kind of where I met Mace Man and played Poison Ivy with Dave Rose. And that was the one where he kicked me out of AMs, and that was one of the few AM tournaments I ever played because Mace Man was like, move up.
Well, and it's because you were kicking people's asses. I mean, it's that honestly, I'll say this to both of you, and I've said this to you before. I probably said it to both of you, but I'll say it again because I think it bears repeating. But you came to me I remember you came to me at USDGC on the deck, and you told me that that was one of the biggest motivators ever, and that you thanked me, and you were very, very complimentary, and you had way more to say than I'm remembering right now, but it just like it really touched me, and I was just like, wow, I didn't realize any of y'all were listening. Because I was pissing them off,
He was relentless, man. He was relentless.
This was before Facebook, and we'd all be on the message board. The PDJ message board. It was like the original Facebook. And I started calling these guys Lords of the Sand, like Chris Pepperling and Chris Ware. And, oh man, I can't remember. There were several people, it was just like, oh, you Lords of the Sand, you just want to keep on getting these trophies at US or at there's USCDC. You got me all distracted.
At a C tier at the Poison Ivy Open. But no, just to give Chris a little background, that was a kind of a holy land course. I loved it. I loved the people.
It was definitely a unique situation,
It was stuck right in this, posh neighborhood on the backside. And what happened, I guess eventually is they claimed their land back. I'm assuming because it's a
Yeah,
beautiful
it was-
little park. And
Well,
they,
what really happened was Doug Evans retired, and Ryan Evans' dad, was a park superintendent, and he was like, all I want is
yeah.
two things I want in my parks department was a disc golf course and a dog park. And as it turned out, the disc golf course ended up getting booted for a massive dog park. And it's giant.
Yeah, it's a great spot. That's how I learned to throw those turnover shots for sure. Take a beat up rock and make it go the wrong way.
Hey, Mace man, true or false? You're a 5-time winner of the Golden Rake Award.
That is false. I'm a 2-time winner. I'm the only 2-time winner. Everybody else only gets it once now, and because there's just too many people that need to be recognized.
And not only the only 2-time winner, you're the only 2-time back-to-back winner.
Correct. Yeah, correct. That's definitely one of the places where I've poured more of everything that I've got into than any other place in disc golf, without a doubt.
Unfortunately, I had already researched this, and Alex Hughes kind of put that out there, and I was like, dang it, Alex, I already had him on this one because I had to go deep on that one, because it's funny when you look at you up, the things that will pop up. If you've never done that, it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I just remember some of it. Man, and dude, Alex Hughes is one of the coolest people on the planet. If he's listening, hey Alex, what's up, man? I missed you. I forgot for a while that he was here because I met him in Toronto. Like, Bellier might have introduced me to Alex. Alex might be able to out-talk me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he'll tell you.
Just don't be moving during his back throw. Do not move while he's in motion. That's for sure.
He is an entertaining person to play golf with.
Don't pick up his 10-footer either. Let him put that out. He needs that 10-footer, 5-footer.
He's got those things.
I miss Alex.
Hey, a little explaining on this picture right now. For some reason, when I look at this picture, sometimes it how they say pictures caption 1,000 words, but it almost looks like this may be a solemn moment if I'm reading the situation correct. Can you kind of give us a little more explaining, as we like to say down here in Texas?
We were dumping ashes. Craig Leva's ashes on hole 17.
Yep. That was just I could just the emotions in the picture were right there for it. I don't know if this is the exact same time or not. If this
that's Craig in the box right there on the basket.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if you knew him, Hemi, but Craig was I called him a living legend. Sorry, he's a really good friend of mine. Craig grew up in La Mirada. And Craig was one of the test pilots for most of the original Innova discs. He and Scott Stokely and Sam Ferrens and Steve Valencia. Man, I'm sure there's a bunch of other guys. Those are the 4 main ones that I know. But there was a lot of other guys too. That probably Mike Williams and a bunch of these old school La Mirada guys. They would be out there playing. I've heard so many stories about 252 gram super puppies. And if you go back to that picture you just showed.
Hold on, give me just 1 second. I was going through some other stuff, but yeah, go ahead, keep talking. I'll get it.
So, anyways, Craig was a bomb and lefty, and he was here in Arlington. Like, he was our local badass. And go to the one after that, the one where you show the front of the shack with the USDGC banner and stuff. He's in that picture. I just saw him.
Okay, anyways, I got you. Yeah, once again,
Craig was a monster lefty thrower. He would throw AVRs and rocks like it. So he's the guy in the visor right there.
Okay, so let me talk so they can see it. So you're saying he's the guy in the visor in
directly below the F in golf.
Okay, so but directly below the F in golf is where Craig is standing right now. Okay, for those y'all need to see.
So, anyways, lots of people know him. I mean, he's an old school guy. Anyways, he had some issues, some mental issues and stuff like that. And his when he committed suicide, it was the season. It was after he'd worked for me that season, and then he went out to LA and and hung himself at the Rose Bowl, and on a tree outside the Rose Bowl. And he honestly, I really, after it was all said and done, and after talking to his mom quite a bit, I came to the conclusion that he was kind of on a farewell tour, because he was making his point to see like Mikey Sayer and Matt Franks and a bunch of those old school, Sam Rosoffi and a bunch of the old school guys around here. And he was living in Atlanta before this all happened, but he was just one of those guys where, he was like the original. He was the if he showed up, you couldn't beat him. You know what I mean? And he was lefty, and he almost always threw just rocks and AVRs at first, until we finally got him to throw a Viper and a Whippet, and then he realized, holy cow, these things go way further than those things. And I mean, the first person I ever knew to throw a rock over 400 feet, like all the time, and he could damn near throw an AVR that far. And this was in the 90s,
like KCs or DX
before
or whatever.
KCs, yeah, DX, yeah, just DX when I first met him. I mean, the KC stuff came around in like 96, 96 and then really became prominent in 97. But yeah, so that was, so Craig's mom came, or she was, after it all happened, Craig said a bunch of times, well, that if he could figure out a way to spend the rest of his days in the Black Hills, that would be the best thing for him. And basically what he was telling me was to go spread his ashes up in the north, in South Dakota. So my brother and I went up there. I picked up Brandon in Salina where he lived, and we went to every historical marker, and I just get the box out, and and we just have a little chat, just see what's up, and we went to all these different places. And then when we got to the Black Hills and went and got to the near Mount Rushmore, we got one of those spice bottles that you get like red pepper flakes in, and we dumped the peppers out, and we just used that, and we'd scoop out his ashes, and we'd go, like when we went to Rushmore, I was like walking along the handrail. There's two different times. There was one time I was going to get busted, and then there was another time I was sure I was going to get busted, because when you spread ashes, you have to ask for permission. It's illegal. You're not supposed to just go and do it. But you never read in the paper about anybody getting prosecuted for illegally spreading someone's ashes, right? So it's one of those, ask for forgiveness before you ask for, after you ask for permission or whatever kind of things. But so I'm walking along at Mount Rushmore, and I'm dumping ashes, and I stop at this spot at the end of this walkway, and I'll turn around, and here comes this park ranger, and like he's coming, and then the closer he got, the more sure I was like, oh my God. I was like, Brandon, we're in trouble. Because me and Brandon, just me and my brother went up there, and I go, he definitely saw me. I'm screwed, And turns out I was standing 4 feet in front of a trash can, and he had a handful of trash to come and drop off. It's like, I'm all paranoid, and we go to Crazy Horse, and Brandon had the jar that time, and they take you on this bus tour if you don't spend the big money and go up to the top. Which, if you go to Crazy Horse, you should actually spend the extra, but whatever it is, like $100. It was like $150 or something like that when we were there, and we were just like, yeah, we'll spend $75 and everything, But seriously, I wish I'd have gone on top. Anyways, he's hanging a U-turn in the school bus, and Brandon's out the back window just dumping hashes as we go. And then we went to Spearfish Canyon, and it's a creek, and there's a creek that runs through there, and that's where we dumped most of it. And then we dumped a few more places on top of the hill at Veterans, on 17's Green at USDTC, and then sent the remainder to. Not the remainder, but sent a big portion of the remainder to with Sam and Dave, Sam Ferris and Dave Donapace, and they put him in some AVRs, and then that was a fundraiser the next year.
Wow.
And I actually still have probably 10 or 12 of them. If anybody really wants one, I'd be willing to sell them. But it's one of those things where I just grabbed all the rest of them and took them home with me, because he really meant a lot to me.
Man, I tell you what, Hemi, twice now I've done a couple things that were very unintentional. One with Jay, and didn't know he ever wanted to be a wrestler. Just happened to pick out something out of the air and make it up out of pure luck.
Yeah.
And it kind of fit. And in this one, it's kind of funny, because not funny, it's ironic. As I was looking through it, I realized that you were doing that, but I did not have any earthly idea that these earlier pictures were in reference to that, because you do have those pictures where you are spreading his ashes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I knew that that's what was going on, but I didn't know that that picture I pulled up, those two pictures were in reference to that.
Well, he was probably,
yeah,
he was one of the biggest. I mean, he was one of the first people that showed that Winthrop is a lefty course, you know. And I mean, I think I'd be surprised if you didn't agree too, Hemi, but that
Most definitely.
If you're a strong lefty, or if you've got a strong flick as a righty, you're going to be able to do well there. And Craig and Scott Martin were battling in the top 5 every time they went in the early years. They were up there in the hunt, you know, and they both had their chances, you know. And so he means a lot to the event. He was involved and he volunteered even after he stopped playing. That was the one event he'd still come up to. And because he was living in Atlanta at the time. And so that was one of those things. It was one thing that was really important to all of us, especially Jonathan and I.
Well, it's kind of funny because I also picked up this picture along the way, which is ironic that you would then lead right into this, because it is a picture of you, a very young you, I might add, at that mountain, at Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And I tried to do this a couple of weeks back with Jay, and it didn't go over so well because I was just answering my own question. But so instead of leaving 2 open, I left 1 open. And so, as you can see, you got Schultz on there, Macbeth, and Climo. Who are you filling in on that 4th one? Because you have a very good, in-depth knowledge. I know who I think it should be, but who do you think?
Does it have to be a player? Does it have to be a player?
Male, and it's male.
Okay.
Male player. That's what he's going for.
Yeah, because we'll do the female separate.
Male pro player.
Wow, dude. I mean, like, it's. That's a good question, man. I mean, I could think of a lot of people that people would be like, wait a minute. And then, but I mean, like, we just had Brad Schick on, and 2 people that come to mind from that area would be Steve Weiskup or Brent Hambrick. But then, you know, you could put Crazy John Brooks up there. You know, you could put Ron Russell up there too. I mean, God, man, that's a tough one. That's kind of like saying what your favorite course is. I mean, what am I near? You know, what's close to here? Oh, that's my current favorite, you know?
I love the fact that you just threw out some names that, hey, I've never heard of. That's just awesome. And that's kind of what Jay had done as well. He goes, we don't even know sometimes the best disc golfers in Texas. And he threw out 2 or 3 people's names, and you're just sitting going, you're right, we don't. Well, and that's the sad thing about our sport.
That's really cool thing about it too. So, man, you know, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I mean, I'd feel pretty comfortable saying that, you know, that Craze deserves some credit in there, because he wasn't just a golfer. And he wasn't just an amazing golfer that almost never had more than 4 discs in his possession on the course. But he was also massive in the in freestyle, you know, in the 80s. Like they were on the Bud Light. Him and my buddy Hal Kurz and a guy named Chipper Bro, who works for Patagonia still to this day. And man, there's a couple other guys I don't even know, but they were on what was called the Bud Light Dream Team. And at one point in time, the Bud Light Dream Team was opening for Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like opening for Stevie Ray Vaughan. You heard that correctly. Like Hemi with his guitar, except for they were doing freestyle, opening for Stevie Ray Vaughan. So Craze, and you see Craze, you ever played around with Craze and you pick up his disc, it's every one of them says SRV underneath it. Every one of them. It's just one of those things that, you know, he's always done forever and ever. So there you go. I don't know, that'd be a pretty fitting person to put up there, I think.
Wow, that's a stretch. But I didn't know him, and I really don't know much about his history. I just know that he did not like me.
In Kansas City?
He gave me the treatment, you know. They're like, oh, that's just crazy, he's just doing his thing. I'm like, okay. He wouldn't talk to me like at all. Yeah.
Did you not call him Craze?
I didn't call him anything. I was just like playing disc golf, you know. I'm like, who's this guy? I didn't know who he was.
That's interesting, because I mean, like, he must, I don't know how he could have got a bad feeling about you.
He's got some kind of radar, I guess. You should all take notice.
Yeah, for sure. We need to be on
I mean,
guard.
if Craig,
Oh, here
that's
comes
like
Timmy.
if my dog doesn't like you, you know,
Here
that's
comes Timmy.
That is funny. That is funny. Man, Hammy, nobody like you. You give off the best vibes, my friend, the best vibes. Hey, speaking of which, let me ask you a question. I know you love disc golf, but there's something you love a little bit more sometimes. True or false? It's just a little piece of heaven when you get to go to an event like this.
Dude, I'll put this in perspective. That is, yes, absolutely. I'm going to Detroit this summer. That's the conference in Tacoma from this last year, the Glass Art Society conference. And I actually, this is a real big merit badge for me personally, that one of the founding artists over at Seneca, where I blow glass and rent time here in Fort Worth, has a public art project that he's making. I don't know how exactly many. I think there's either one or two, but he's definitely making a spare. But he's making a globe that's going to be replace a black, like a black light post on the street. It's going to replace the globe on top of that, and it's going to be the shape of a acorn, but the smooth part of the acorn is going to be impressions of his daughter's hands, like the tops, like all over it. And when she was 8, now she's 10, but he's making it's got to be like 22, I believe it's 22 inches in diameter that it's got to be. And he's asked me to be like the 6th person on the 6-man team. So I just barely made the cut, but like, that's pretty damn cool. And we're going to do it in that spot, because we have to have a big enough annealer and a big enough secondary heater in order to keep that thing hot enough to make it all happen and get it blown out and everything. And he blows it in. He's going to make a huge bubble and then blow it into the mold. And so that's where
the handprints came from.
Yeah, that's handprints and the acorn, like the fringe of the acorn.
That was all in clay or something like that.
Yeah, and he's been working on this for a while. Like, he's made a few. I split time with him last week on Wednesday, and he's not doing anything like that. But man, this guy, like, I'm like this a lot. I'm just sitting there watching, like, because you have to have an assistant when you blow glass, and you're not a collaborator unless they really, really want you to be. But you're basically there to, do things like get the second pipe, get the punny on the second pipe, and come over and get this whole thing off of this first pipe for me, where you break it off, and then go get it started on the secondary heat, and then they come in and take it away from you. And basically, when I'm assisting him, that's about all he needs, because he's got the touch, and he's so lucky to know him, and not just him, everybody at Seneca Studios. That was one of the best days ever. I called up Brad Bishop and I was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing tonight?" And they go, "We're going to see PJ's band, PJ Fry, at, Sally Majestic. We're going to see Sally Majestic at the Arts Coggle." Well, Sally Majestic was playing in the parking lot at the Glass Studio, so I saw like 5 or 6 songs, and then I walked over to the roll-up doors on the front of this an old gas station, and they were doing a demo, and I sat there in the front row for like 3 hours and just was mesmerized. And I was like, "Where's this been all my life?" And just had my 10-year anniversary just a few weeks back. I've been blowing glass for 10 years now, and somehow I managed this will be my 11th year doing USDGC. So Jonathan jumped on me immediately. He's like, "Hey, it looks like you're getting the hang of this." How did I not know what I was getting myself into? It's still a work in progress 10 years later, but man, I'm really pleased with where I'm at with it.
That's cool. That day sounded like something that you manifested. You created that beautiful, sweet day, and it started with like years ago. You said something happened, something changed, and you can you remember a specific thing? I mean, because I know that you kind of turned a switch at one point.
Okay,
You told us last time we were talking.
Well, so it's very ironic that you asked that question. So I just, like, this evening I had dinner with my 2 of my best friends in the world, Jerry and Marie Gotcher. And in 90, I switched from TCJC North West Campus to TCJC Northeast Campus because I had moved from like the west side of Fort Worth, like around Camp Bowie. I moved out here to Arlington, and the Northeast Campus was much closer. And they also had some art classes that weren't offered at Northwest. And I was taking college theater at Northwest mostly, and I was trying to get in the entertainment business, which obviously I did. And I'd already been getting a lot of work, but I took the sculpture class, and I walk into the sculpture class and literally see guys that are our age, ladies and guys that are our ages, I'd say between the range of 40 and 65. And there's like shop tables with the big steel tops and then 8 lockers underneath, there's like, it's a big sculpture lab studio, and there's 3 of them, and they're all got like 5 or 6 old people, in my opinion. At the time I was like 23, 24, right? And I'm like, I don't want to sit with those old people. I don't want to sit with those old people. And I sure don't want to sit with those old people. And I look to my right, and there's a table with nobody at it. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit right here. And that was, God, it was so 90. So that's like 33 years ago, back when I smoked cigarettes. And I went outside, smoked a cigarette, and I come back, and the only people my age in the class were 3 good-looking women that had already had their books sitting on stools that I couldn't see, that were behind the table. And so it was the one with the most space too. But so I ended up meeting Christy and Marie and Wendy, and I'm still friends with Christy. And Marie cooked me meatloaf tonight. And if I didn't know them, if I hadn't met Marie in that class, I wouldn't know y'all, because Jerry introduced me to disc golf and hockey. And so that's like 2/3 of my friends. The other third is entertainment. And I had those friends pretty much almost all the way back then too. So, okay, what else? Let's go.
That's perfect. It's amazing how you just kind of lead us from one thing to the other. True or false?
He's a pro.
The passion that you have is your stars.
Oh man, I was there last night. I've been there for all the playoff games so far. It's, honestly, I grew up in Kansas, and I was still am a big college basketball fan, but that's what I grew up around, was college basketball and junior college, like the junior college, National Junior College, the NCJAA, National Junior College Athletic Association tournament is in my hometown and has been since the late 50s every spring. And so I saw Spud Webb practice in my high school gym. Like, they take over all the gyms in town. And so phys ed during that week is usually you sitting in the bleachers and watching some team from wherever practice. But I saw Spud Webb do a 360 jam in my high school gym back home. And then I saw him win the National Junior College Championship in the sports arena there. And so, I grew up with that. And then I moved down here, and, just like lots of people, Jerry's like, let's go to the hockey game. And then I was just like, fine. I'm like all drunk and drinking beers and yell and fight and act like like somebody had never been there. But I sure wish I had grown up where they play, because I'd at least gone until I broke something. I love it. I read about it every day, especially right now with the playoffs going on. It's definitely something that I'm a bigger fan of that than any of the other sports. I read a lot about a lot of different teams. I know, I play the game on EA Sports. That's the only reason I have an Xbox.
It looks like you might have about 19 different jerseys as well. You've met about 50 players. Yeah, there's a deep dive. I saw quite a few different pictures that you have of your love for this team.
Well, and that's, that's one thing that sucks, because, obviously I got some experience with merchandise, and, I go into that, especially during Christmas time, I go in there with plenty of money ready to spend it. And most of the time they don't have anything that fits me. And I've lost a lot of weight in the last 5 years, but it's, and it's not like, if I had a budget like that, I could make some badass clothing for sure. And it's really gotten to a point where the best thing for me to do is just buy another jersey. They're not, $200 is a little bit of money, but for like a souvenir like that, you're going to continue to wear to games for 20 or 25 years. I got a lot of jerseys. You're right. Not as many as Jack Lowe, but I got a lot of jerseys.
Back on your merchandising thing, Chris, Mace Man made my favorite all-time disc golf shirt, and I'll see if he can remember which one it was. And it has to do with comfort. It has to do with the look, the vibe, everything about it. I wore it completely out. I was sad. I had my own little ceremony when it was gone. You remember which one I'm talking about? He did several with the big show.
I'm not sure which one it would be, because
the black one with the blue Zebos on the front. Okay. It was the
spiral, your last amateur.
Semi-dry fit. It was such a cool material. It didn't smell like onions, you know. It and it was like that orange one you got, Chris. It was that material, you know. But
that Nike that you swooshed the other way, that you did such a good job at swishing the swoosh on it. That was awesome. I still have that shirt.
I accentuated the swoosh.
It's interesting that you mentioned that too, because we've got merch on our website again. We haven't done the dive all the way into the clothing yet, but in the next couple of weeks we are definitely going to introduce some more clothing. And let's take a couple of weeks, probably more like the next month or so to 6 weeks. But we got discs on our website at macemountain.com. It's all loaded back up, and we're, you know, I'm trying to push a few things right now so that I can keep a bunch of people busy. And it didn't work as well as I'd hoped this year, but at the same time, a lot of the groundwork I've laid has definitely been paying off with glass. Because I mean, I started the year with 20 pieces worth of commission work, and I got it down to 11, and it bounced back to 18, and now it's hovering just under 10. I think if I have in the next 2 weeks, if I could get like 4 sessions in, I'll probably get caught up on all the pieces I need to make, and then I need to finish them all. But that's another thing that's definitely on the forefront. And I've got a guy working for me semi full time that's handling a lot of that for me, because like Brandon and I talked about it for several years, for like the last 5 years. We need to do something, and neither one of us really have the time for it, you know. I just keep putting more stuff on my plate.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Hemi, kind of speak to that, obviously, what that's like being an artist and kind of having people commission work from you. And then it's the difference between being creative on your own versus being kind of committed to somebody's project. I mean, how as an artist do you kind of work through that?
Well, you know, the times that I've had commissions stacked up, you know, it's an acrylic, so I can knock them out. With what he's talking about, you know, you got to be really meticulous about your time, I would imagine.
Oh yeah.
To get everything lined up and done properly in an order, because it's such a meticulous process that you go through with the glass blowing. That's not, you know, with acrylics, I can not that I would slap together a painting, but I mean, it's kind of overnight thing, you know. It dries and you're ready to go.
Well, and that's very true. And it's, well, and obviously some of the things that make it more complicated, but it's kind of what I'm, you know, I've been learning a lot about the glass, and then I learn about other processes, whether it's an artist that comes to our studio to teach, or whether now I've started going out and finding those places and going and taking these week-long classes with other people, and particularly made friends with a couple guys in Tucson. Like I met Mark at the beginning of the pandemic, like literally the week they were pulling bar stools and tables out of the restaurants and bars in Fort Worth was the week he had his class here. And I really learned a lot from him on both sides of the fence, from the, you know, just surviving going into the pandemic, but also just how many steps deep do you want to go here? You know, I mean, there's just so many different things and so many different angles with glass that you can it's just amazing. And honestly, I was kind of discounting the award side of it until I had a talk with Zane Letts about a month ago or so. And part of the whole development of this trophy that I just showed you a little bit ago, and the evolution basically, was that, you know, he was saying, hey, look, you know, look at these shapes. And I showed him the order from the memorial, and he goes, man, this one here in particular is great. And I go, oh, you mean like this one? And I pulled out one that I'd blown out the blue too far, and so it didn't show blue anymore. And he goes, yeah, that's the shape. That's what I'm talking about. He said, you really need to go back to these guys, and you need to go back to those guys and say, hey, look, you guys talked about this, and then you never fired, but look at what I'm doing now. And he really paid me some high compliments that day, but he also opened my eyes up to the fact that, you know, I've been talking about this for probably a little over a year, maybe a year and a half at this point, about wanting to get this mechanism fine-tuned behind me so that all I had to do was go be creative every day. And one of the things that's actually working, which is these awards, I'm not selling lots and lots, but I mean, it's not something that every tournament's going to be able to do, but it is something that if I find the right way into certain people in corporate America, I mean, I can sell these things for full price and get 4 figures for a single award if I'm going to the right place for it. You know what I mean? Obviously disc events aren't going to pay that kind of money for a trophy, but somebody with a few $1 million behind them, they're going to go, what? We'll take 10 of those, it's like, oh, okay. So I totally agree with what you're saying and what you said, Chris, about the way that the commissions will put their foot on you and kind of keep you under their foot to some degree. But at the same time, I want to get there, and those pieces are all paid for as soon as I'm done with it. So why would I not do it? I mean, it's kind of a weights and balances thing. I mean, I took a Marini class in Tucson in January, and I haven't done anything with any of that stuff since I got home because I had all this other work stacked up. And like, that's one of the things right now that's like, okay, I could get these other things done in 2 weeks, and then I could pull some more cane and start bundling up and making some Marini and take a whole nother step, so it's, man, I'm really, really lucky. I'm lucky that I met Marie in art class. I'm lucky that I went down and saw PJ's band that day. I mean, I'm lucky that I met these people and they've accepted me in their glass family, because this is one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me, and one of the coolest, probably the coolest thing in my life.
That's great. It's great. It's really cool from this perspective here in the Woodlands and talking and looking back at the person that I thought I knew when I was playing the tournaments. I had no idea. I had no idea you were an artist. And I knew you put out good t-shirts because they were among my favorites. But you've really you impressed me, man. It's cool to actually be sitting here talking to a successful person who's kind of a renegade, doing his own thing, and like one of the original rock stars of disc golf, who just go out on the road and try to make a thing of it. Because we always heard you don't make money at disc golf, but now you do, now.
Man, hasn't that changed,
Big time.
Thanks for that compliment, man. I mean, that really means a lot to me. And honestly, like, there's probably a lot of things that I can tell you, a couple of other things that you probably didn't realize, but like, like that poison ivy, that bear paw poison ivy stamp, I made that. I mean, I did that on Corel Draw, and a lot of my art a lot of our art on Mace Man stuff was stuff that I did, on the computer. And it's, the thing that's really cool is that I'm working on these light boxes, the next incarnation of these light boxes, and I'm putting impressions on the back side of the glass and then shining light through it. And a lot of those flat graphics work for that too. And I got so many that I never did anything with, and I just sit here and work on things and just do different things and come up with ideas. And so I got a ton of artwork that's never really seen the daylight yet, and it's all graphics, and actually have like 4 or 5 laptops that need to go to Best Buy and get stripped and dump it onto it to get some of that back,
Right. Yeah. That's
I had a great time going through it because it's just amazing, the pictures and the blown glass. And the further you go back, it's amazing where you started and you are now. But that stuff that you were producing years ago, even this right here, the 2015 championship trophy, I just was in awe. And then the 2017 trophy. I mean,
that one I think was the biggest. I think that one's 22.5 inches. That's Nate Dawson.
I should have taken the picture of them holding it, because that's when you get an idea. Because when you see the girl holding the trophy, it's like this big around her face. It's huge.
Yeah, that one there is Nate Sexton's, if I'm not mistaken. And then the next year I started flattening them and started making the vessel that was flattened instead of doing the platter. It's, man, it's really crazy because there's just so many, there's so many cool things about it. And then there's so many things that will just slap you in the face and go, yeah, go back and try again. Yeah.
No, did I just tie it up? We're good.
No, I don't think so. Well, I didn't stop talking.
No. I'm sorry.
Sometimes
I was thinking, I was wondering if you could pull anything off like that.
Oh, easily.
That's easy stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's super easy, but I could definitely do that. I mean, it's a ball with a base underneath it. But yeah, that's that. So like if you look at like if you the picture you
Timmy,
showed,
show that one again. Show that again.
Okay. Can you see that?
yeah, is
Mhm.
that from Glass Blown Open or is that something?
Yeah, that's a glass blown. And
Yeah, so
and I think, I bring that up because they changed their name, it's like they're I guess they needed to brand themselves in the tournament.
Dynamic Disc Open or something like
Yeah,
that.
the
wasn't it?
DDO, it changed from the
And didn't they
glass
move it out of the spring this? No, that's not true. It's this weekend. It's like right now. Starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
So okay, so you look at the piece that Dave showed, and then the platter that you showed previous, and then the piece that's in behind you right now. When you look at
this one.
so like if you look at this with Dave, it kind of looks like it's got freckles, and that was made with frit, which is bits of color. The one over your shoulder was made with rod. And the way you can tell the difference is that even like there's areas that are different colors there, but they're large areas of consistent color except for the white wrap, and that's still smooth and consistent. So all of those pieces were made with what started out, they're anywhere from 12 inches to 18 inches long, and they weigh a half a key to a key, and like a kilo is like just over 2 pounds. And the only reason I know that is because I had to remove 2 pounds from my luggage when I came back from that trip you showed, because it was overweight and it was going to cost extra $50 to bring that piece of glass home. So, anyways, that's a little lesson on that. You see smooth, continuous color. It's made with rod or possibly powder, but for the most part, it's usually rod.
I love that explanation. Maybe you have to give an explanation about this picture right here, because I
was
too
just-
had a college roommate that was on this show. But when I saw this picture, I don't think the young audience is going to quite understand the fact that at this time there's probably only 3 major networks, and maybe three with the offshoots that you had on 26 and 39, and if those of you who were lucky at that time, channel 20. So kind of speak to what you're doing in this picture so you can give the younger audience an idea of what this is all about.
All right, so that's in my opinion, that was the best Monday Fun Day we ever had. That was 2003. That was the Monday after the first Super Tour, or was it Super Tour or A Tour? It wasn't the first A Tour. It was the next level. Like it was before, maybe it was an Elite Series, but it was long before the Pro Tour or any of that kind of thing. And so that was it was held at La Mirada. Selinsky ran it, Tim Selinsky. It was called the Golden State Classic. And so we all went out there and played. And my event, the Zebos Open, wrapping up the big show that year, was the weekend before, or maybe it was 2 weeks before. But anyways, McCabe showed up and he already had tickets. And he's like, dude, this is the Monday. And everybody was already buzzing about it. We were all fixing to hit the road and go out there. Some of them were already on the road, and then I was going to hit the road after that event was over. And so there was 19 of us. Barry Schultz is in that picture. Brian Schweberger, Billy Crump, Brian McCree, Pat Govang, Terry Roddy was there. Man, it was a ton of people. And so we went to Beyond the Price is Right. Billy Crump got in line at like 5:15. They took their motorhome and parked it across the street, and he set an alarm, and he was the first one of us in line. And then we just started gathering momentum. And, by the time it got to 6 o'clock, there was the 19 of us were in line and nobody else showed up. And so, yeah, I was on the Price is Right. It was pretty cool. Pretty amazing.
I had a college roommate who actually won the whole thing. He was a fraternity brother of mine as well. We were roommates, and his name was David Swartz from Cypress Creek High School. He won the whole kit and caboodle. I mean, I think it was like I think 12,091 was the winning bid on it, nice. Which was just incredible.
Yeah, well, so one of the things that people don't know about that is that you have to pay tax on the value of whatever you get. And I was a broke ass disc golfer, and I didn't have any money for any of that kind of crap. So I didn't get any of those prizes in the end. But I did. I was on the showcase. It's Mace Man on The Price is Right. It's on YouTube. It's, if you hadn't seen it, you should check it out, because Bob really, man, Bob is really good at his job. He's really after the first go round on the first game that I got up on and I won, he asked me, like, I was like, okay, I don't think there's anything else I could say about disc golf. And I mean, he asked me a lot of good questions, and it was one of the best opportunities on national TV at the time that we'd ever had. And like, it caught attention. I had text messages from, and like, phones were shit back then, you know, there was no smartphones or nothing. And I mean, I probably had 35 texts when I walked out of that place already, because people, like, the word got out and they all knew. Like, I don't know how, because we didn't have smartphones, and it wasn't on until that aired the Monday after the Memorial. So like 3 weeks later, I think, something like that. And there was a whole bunch of UN crap going on. It was supposed to air the Friday before, and then Hans Blick had to do a speech to the UN, and there was a bunch of problems in the Middle East, and so that all that daytime programming got bumped to Monday. And so we all, like, all of us plus Jay and Dez and plus several other people, like, jammed into Dan and Stu Ginley's living room to watch this the Monday after the Memorial, after they had already given it their all and run this event for us. And like, that was a tradition. If you watched my show a couple weeks ago when we had Dan on, like, that was one of the things that I really miss about Stu being gone, is that we used to go Monday morning and go eat breakfast after, you know, and they'd wind down, you know. And Keith Murray was, before he was living out there, but he was still heavily involved in running the event already. And so me, Dan, Sue, and Keith, and whoever else, you know, were the key people from that staff. That was kind of when I was really becoming more and more. Well, I mean, I'd already run a bunch of events, but I was really, really kind of figuring out who I was as a promoter, and, you know, kind of gravitating towards people like that and learning from them.
Yeah, and I've seen that clip before. You and Bob Barker, and you were excellent. The perfect spokesperson for it. You know, your energy was up. You were ready for it. You know, there was no deer in the headlights.
Well, situation. And that's, I mean, I worked in that situation, entertainment business. It's like, I was at work, you know. I mean, I didn't think, the only reason I was thinking about the audience was because every time you see me look back, and I was getting advice from Kevin McCoy. You know, he was like, because Kevin McCoy and Billy Moody, I don't know if you know Billy, but
yeah.
Kevin and Billy used to watch back then still, and they were watching it all the time. And he knew, he was like 975, 975. And I was like, what? He was like 975. He's like giving me sign language and stuff. And he was right every time. Like when I played the Switch'em game, I looked at him and he was like, stay. He's like, leave it alone. And he was right, you know. And so it was, yeah. So I owe, you know, Kev was on our show recently too. And I owe big credit to Kev, man. And that was, I look back, that was one of the things that's cool about having Kev on our show, is Kevin McCoy's, man, a lot of my memories, a lot of my great disc golf memories, he was right there. You know, it was, we were experiencing those things together, you know. And and then all those 19 people, I mean, so many, Cam and Leslie and Mike Young, Avery and Dave, and Todd, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure those guys were there. I mean, it was like the crew that we all ran around with. I mean, we didn't all get along all the time, but man, that was a great day. We went and saw a Craig Kilborn show later that night. I mean, it was epic.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So can you think of
is my mic working?
Can you think of a disc golf player who actually was a partner to a team that won Fear Factor?
Yeah. So, yeah, Jackson.
Yeah,
Jackson
remember Jackson. Yeah, he came from the Bear
Jackson
Creek
area. From Bear Creek, absolutely. Yeah, and they won like the whole couples thing.
Yeah, and I wonder whatever happened to them.
So Jackson, Caleb still gets his haircut from Jackson, if I'm not mistaken. But Jackson, I don't think, is running the salon anymore. He's last I heard, he was outfitting boats with lighting. Like, he was putting LED highlight lights on boats and things like that, you know, modifying existing vehicles and stuff like that. And they're not, from what I understand, they're not together anymore. And I really don't know anything about where Monica's at.
Well, Yeah, that was exciting times. It must have been for you guys too, waiting for
Yeah,
that
we
to
were
air.
having watching parties. It was super cool.
Yeah,
And somehow they managed to keep it all quiet because the shit was all concluded.
yeah.
Long
They
before.
actually won the $1 million prize, Chris, and kept it quiet.
And they couldn't say a word. Like
and we were close with him. I hung out with him a lot. I actually did a mural in his apartment. Did you ever happen to see that?
No, I didn't.
It was one of my favorite all-time murals that Jackson commissioned. It was really bright color, but anyway, I knew him well, and I just knew I vibed it. I knew that they won.
And a lot of us,
and I think everybody did.
Yeah, but like they never admitted it. They never, and we were all, remember we'd go to Gators. Were you in town at that point?
I was there at the reveal. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, that was awesome.
They
that was
revealed
good times.
Yeah, I was actually in the club.
Well, of all the shows I would not do, that would be the one. I'm not eating anything. I don't mind the jumping and all that stuff, but I'm not eating anything
rotten. I'm gonna tell you what, I will throw everything in the fridge out before I will get food poisoning again.
I'm not a good taste tester anyway of a lot of foods. I've tasted them, but man, I'm not happening. Not gonna do it.
I'm out on creepy stuff. Shove me in a box with live things. Yeah, I'm out on that
with
for
Madagascar.
Sure. Yeah,
cockroaches
or
whatever. Snakes, a box of snakes.
No, so how about this? How about this, Mace? I drove a parachute manufacturer today. He was a specialist, some device that with the company that he's with, it makes sure that emergency chute comes open. That's what he does. Yeah. And so we were talking about that. I said, so have you jumped? And he said he has. And he goes, and they say that you either love it or hate it. He said, I'm kind of on the fence, he goes, I don't think I'm going to do it again. And that told me a lot. So would you jump out of an airplane?
Yeah.
Have you?
No, but I have my best friend from high school is, he jumps down there in Houston. And I think he jumped into the opening day this year. He did something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was either the opening day or else it was the Final Four, but they wouldn't have the roof open for the Final Four. So it must have been opening day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he jumps in that, whatever the big place is down there, and he's a master. And so at some point I am going to go jump with him. But
yeah, that's Clear Lake. They fly out of Clear Lake and they jump out, which is right next to NASA.
He's done formations and set records, and like he picked it up in college when he was going to Kansas State, and they had a club up there, and it's something he's stuck with his whole entire life.
Well, this guy I was talking to, he opened my eyes about something that happened. I was leaving the House of Blues one time watching a friend of mine play there. He's in a Tom Petty cover band. We had a blast, and we were walking back looking for the car, and all of a sudden out of the sky like a couple of guys come down, and it was totally quiet, and they just, you hear them, and then they ruffling their stuff, and they grab it and they run off. And I was telling that guy this story, and he said they were base jumping.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Those guys jumped off of a building or something. I'm like, that's nuts, because you couldn't hire a plane to get in that airspace.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. Yeah, that's a base jump.
That's nuts.
And you can get in lots of trouble for that. Like, so I was walking to the game last night, totally different but similar trouble. But I'm walking to the game down Houston Street towards Victory Plaza and all that crap, and I see these two guys on these enduros, and this one guy, he's riding a wheelie, and he's like he was put on the planet to do it. At one point, he had his right knee in the seat, and he had his left leg on the peg, and in the midst of the wheelie, he kind of did a jump, and he switched to his left knee in the seat and his right leg on the peg, and just wah, wah, wah. And then about a minute later, I see this cop in a Suburban come kind of creeping up on him, and they went down, and I could see him. I turned around, I was going, this might be interesting. This might be the entertainment before the entertainment. And the guys went down there and turned a U-turn, and they were screwing around, and that cop caught up to him. And then all of a sudden they popped over, and they came down the other block, and then they drove across the plaza that's across from Hooters. It's like all concrete. It's like a walkway and a couple of steps. They drove across oncoming traffic and got on the sidewalk by Hooters, and then disappeared down the sidewalk to the other side of the freeway. and that cop came and he couldn't go because they were going against one-way traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh, I was really wanting to chase. Come on, where's the entertainment in this? But it's the same kind of thing. Like, you get caught doing that, they're gonna at least sit you down on the curb and have a talk.
Yeah, it's funny because it never even dawned on me that those guys were base jumping ever, until today. And this guy said, yeah, they had to be base jumping. That's crazy.
Mhm.
If you've been to downtown Houston, it's like there's not much room to navigate.
Well, I wonder if you just bang into shit too. I mean,
Yeah.
just slam up against the building and then you
Well,
fall
and
out your
that,
limp.
and that
cut your
goes
life when you hit
that
it.
goes totally against what I said is like the worst thing that could happen if you're going to skydive, it only happens for like a millisecond. It's like there's no pain involved really, and so that's the worst thing could happen. But yeah, if you're banging into buildings, it's going to get really bad.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Hey, Mace, I got one more picture I kind of dove into, and it's kind of funny. Every time I see pictures like this, I know Hemi thinks the exact same thing. I think is going to be like, oh, I remember that. I remember this. So, A, I just want to know if you can tell me what year you remember this to be, and B, what are y'all doing here?
Oh, that's my cousins. So that's my dad's side of the family. We're in Junction City, Kansas. It was a Thanksgiving for sure, because that was when we always got together, was Thanksgiving in that family. And it was rare because my cousins from Illinois were in this picture. Like the girl in the middle, the second one from the left, that's my cousin Michelle. And her brother, I think, is right behind her, Eric. And their dad is the second oldest in my dad's family of 7. And he's still kicking at 89. We just got together for my aunt's funeral. My cousin on the far left, Keith, his mom passed away, and the funeral was on April 1st. And Uncle Gene drove down from Peoria, Illinois, and he did at 89, and he did the same thing for my dad's funeral in October. And Eric and his wife drove separately, and they divided. And so the girls went in one car and the guys went in the other, and he drove his dad back home. And then when I saw Eric at the funeral this time in the pickup truck, I was like, well, I guess Uncle Gene didn't come. And he's like, oh, no. He drove himself. And I was like, I thought you guys took the keys away from him. And he's like, seriously, he's 89, but he's still like the oldest Mace that we got. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I just didn't believe it back then, but you did drive him home in October. So yeah, that's my cousins. I think
What
that's
year?
almost all of them too. I'm gonna say that was probably 75 or 76.
You nailed it. 1975.
Was it 75?
Oh, yeah, I could just it says that on the picture actually, but when I looked at those clothes and that background, and
yeah,
if you actually if I show you the rest of the background, once again, it's always those wooden panels that everybody had back in the day, everybody's house had. So I love photos like this, because I think Kimmy and I both have just boxes of these as well. I've got them with my cousins. Funny, you have one named Michelle. Mine's from Oklahoma, and she's also named Michelle as well. But that's just, I love pictures like that. So thanks for kind of filling us in on that.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. What else are you going to reveal about me?
No. I had to stop there. Trust me, I had to stop there.
I'm on the right behind Chris's eye. I'm on the right-hand side in the middle. And in the dark shirt there, my brother's
You're the one looking up?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I see.
With the longish hair, which we all had that long hair right there. I got that exact same haircut, I think, back in 75.
Well, that's me in the front there with the striped shirt. That's my hairdo right there. Had the somewhat bob.
That's my cousin Bruce. So it's like that. So Bruce, Michelle, and Eric are all right in a row there. And then the number 34 is my cousin Mark, and his brother's on the far left. And then the girl with the curly hair and the glasses in the middle is Becky, and her brother Raymond is on the floor in front of her. And then cousin Michelle is right there between me and Becky. So Becky's husband's a preacher. They live in Cedar Hill, which is not far from me, like 20, 30 minutes away. We spent Thanksgiving with them this year. And,
so is that a Walter Payton jersey then? 34 if they're from Peoria, Illinois?
No, Mark didn't. I don't know who that jersey's for. I think that's blue. But Mark, so no, the three in the middle, or the three left of him, like the guy left of him, and then the girl down, and then the little guy with the striped shirt, they're the ones from Illinois. And they do have Chicago allegiances. Well, at least Eric does. I hadn't seen Bruce in years.
You talking about Blackhawks too? Yeah, those are fighting works for you hockey fans, the Blackhawks and the Stars.
Yeah, well, there ain't nothing right now. So they were playing for the first round draft pick this year. But it's your cousin. I mean, it's a little bit of a rivalry, but Eric is a wickedly talented photographer. He's got some amazing wildlife photos, and some of the stuff we're going to do some collaborations on my light boxes. He's already kind of giving me free run at any of the photos I want, and then I'm just going to have to dumb them down, modify the graphics to where it's just 2D, two color, white and black. So anyways.
No, that's all I had. That was the last one. I was just saving that one for the end, actually, because I could have gone on forever. You have so many wonderful memories and photos in your portfolio. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a slacker this year. I just keep doing more and more stuff and not really recording any of it. I mean, I've got photos, but I haven't dumped anything on social media in a while. Maybe after this weekend I'll catch up.
If you find a Big Show black T-shirt with the blue logo and XL, save it for me.
Man, we'll see.
I don't know what year it was, but it was an amazing shirt. So yeah, keep it up. I want to see some more Mace Man product out there. I'll purchase some. We're
working on that for sure. We'll have. My goal is to really have a good selection by the 25th in Rock Hill, and just kind of, and we're from a variety of different standpoints. I mean, one of the cool things that we're going to do, I just sent off the artwork for a pair of stamps, and I'm working on making glass minis for competitors, and then super limited run for competitors, and then there will be a spectator run as well that will be more obviously readily available. But if you're not a competitor, you won't end up with one of those competitor ones. They'll be numbered and signed and everything like that.
Hey, let me tell you a quick story about a Mace Man product. I had two Big B DX aviars with the Mace Man, with the gesture on it. You remember that run? It's amazing run of plastic. all the time when I was doing really well in Kansas City, that was my upshot disc. That was my zone. Right? That was my zone. It was my throwing putter. And I threw one in from a long way on hole 18. One year it was the KC Wide Open. I was on the car with Tank and Sprague.
Oh, nice.
I can't remember who, and not a great round, kind of one of those Blue Valley rounds that kind of tossed me around. And I threw in for an eagle with that red Mace Man disc. So anyway, fast forward years later, and I got to where I didn't throw them, and I was throwing more challengers. Ended up, Loomis was going on his thing, Doss Loomis.
Oh yeah, he's right in the middle of that picture.
He's in there.
Yeah, that's Mina.
That's him. Yeah.
The blonde lady's Mina, and then Loomis is to her right.
Chris, man, your psychic abilities are improving for sure. That's pretty impressive. You have to say something.
Y'all are crazy. Y'all make it too easy.
Yeah,
for me.
That's Loomis right there.
Yeah,
so anyway,
totally.
he was really fond of those, and I knew he was going to be putting them to use. And I said, why don't you just take them? And so he took them, and they were perfectly worn in together, a set. You know how I like to do it, Chris.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, fast forward, he gets through with them, and he passes them on to some other dude who ends up messaging me on Messenger saying, hey, I think I've got your putters. And then he told me how he came about them, and Loomis sold them for like $5 a piece. He needed some. No, I don't know. You'd have to ask Loomis, but I think he did get rid of them. But this guy was interested, somehow and getting them back to me. And I was like, that's really cool. I'd love to. And we conversed on Messenger and never heard from him again. But somewhere out there in the world are those great DX big beats that had the Mace Man stamp on them. So
it's great that they live on. That's one thing.
Did we lock
when
up?
When we went to Toronto, when I went to Toronto back in the day, like in the late night or like 99, 2000, 2001, they weren't getting anything up there. And so I would see something similar to this happen where I'd take everything I could get with me and then sell it while I was up there. And then the next year I'd come back and I'd be like, wait a minute, I didn't sell that to you. I sold that to so and so. And like there'd be special certain ones, and you'd see them in other people's bags. Like next visit, they'd be in somebody else's bag and stuff like that. So it's really interesting how much life a disc can have. You know, even when you're done with it, it may not be done.
yeah.
You know?
Well, if we had Loomis, we should get Loomis on. That would be an entertaining one. But if we had Loomis on, he could tell us, because I have a feeling, because he got a major in Australia, he in Masters in the 40 MPO or FP40.
Just recently?
No, this is back just right after I left and came to the Woodlands. Sometime after that, he went down to Australia and won its tournament, and he became a major winner. And I guess they had made it a major that year or something. I'm not sure how it works or what tournament it was, but that disc was probably, or that pair of discs was probably involved in that. I'd like to find out, but yeah,
so
probably.
That last picture that you just showed, that was a team tournament at Sandy Point, Wisconsin, or in that's just outside of Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin. And that's one of my few bragging points. That's one of the few years where I was involved in some really, really good disc golf. And I believe that was 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure if it was that year or it was the next time we went. I'm pretty sure it was that. No, it was that year, because Tank and Hal drove up from Kansas City, and we showed up without a grandmaster. So we gave up 7 points. Showing up to the tournament, we gave up 7 points, and we made the final against Michigan. And they had like Mark Ellis and Al Shack, Gary Lara, like all these guys that could play Masters or Open. Javier Kowalski. I mean, just like an unbelievable roster, and they smoked our asses. But we made the final one player down and gave up. I mean, we were down 7 points before the tournament ever even started. So that was really cool. And part of the deal was we had a sacrificial lamb. We put up a guy that was just, he was just gonna, give up points in the first seed, and then we put Randolph at the second seed, and he swept it. And then Waldo took half his points too in the first round. And so it was really amazing. It was just one of those things, like we had a meeting every night. We talked about how we wanted to do it, what we were going to do, and how we were going to approach it. And it wasn't just like one person in charge. It was all of us. It was awesome.
Nice. I had some great times with Loomis. He was my official driver after tournaments.
Oh yeah.
Because there would be beers involved usually,
Sure.
and Doss had given up the drinking thing several years before that, so he was our designated driver / comedian. It was always a pleasure. Great
dude. He's a nut too, man, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like he goes to murder homes and goes to visits graves and stuff, and like he's on a mission when he travels.
Yeah,
he wants to see who killed who where, and go see famous people's graves and all kinds of stuff, man.
Yeah, and a great individual. Really one of my favorite people.
Yeah, I really like spending time with him too.
Yeah, and he was a stand-up comic, Chris.
Yeah.
So he was on the road, and he played with some really big names, and he would rattle off, Stephen Wright, or people that he opened for, people he was contemporaries with. It's like the scene is very similar to disc golf. It's a small world. It's a small world of people trying to make it in that business, that entertainment business. But good guy. We should definitely have Doss on at some point. It's funny. I think that's a nickname he came up with when he was playing overseas or something. He found out it was actually the effeminate version of the Loomis.
Oh,
And so-
really?
and it just stuck. And that's what he would use when he wrote articles for the magazine, the Disc Golfer magazine. He was one of the contributing authors, and some of the best stories he wrote. One about Juliana that was probably the best story I'd ever read in disc golf. You know, it wasn't just the cheesy points that you always hear about disc golf. You know, it was insight about why she got out of the sport and what the sport represented at the time. It wasn't a healthy thing to be known as a disc golfer at some point in the
For sure.
in the professional world, you know, kind of
Yeah,
worked
well,
it.
especially the world where she was swimming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, she's interesting, but yeah. Well, you got anything else, Chris?
Oh no, that's it for me. I just love the stories, but I know we can go on for days. So I just love when y'all start talking. But no, I'm full this evening, that is for sure. But Brian, I do appreciate you joining the show tonight. Thank you so much for coming on. I've enjoyed watching your podcast from afar as well. Congratulations on that. I hope
Thanks.
it becomes a bigger success for you in the future, if that's what you wish for as well. And I'm definitely behind you.
Well, hey, Chris, I got to say, I reached out to you when we were starting that a year ago and asked you for some advice. And, that's just one of those things where if you don't know anything, then you go and ask somebody that you know that knows anything. And I appreciate the help that you gave me on that too. And that's our deal is totally a work in progress. And we have some cool stuff coming up. I hope that we can pull it off. It just depends on whether or not a couple people say yes. But it's really well, as you can tell, I could talk all night, and I really like being involved with telling stories and stuff like that. And the one of the coolest things for me about that whole thing is like Paul Bellier is one of my best friends in the world, and we joke with each other, and he he's my best Canadian friend and I'm his best American friend, and that's one of the things that we've been saying about each other for a long time. But it's one of those things where if I'm not he lives in Toronto and I haven't been to Toronto in like 16 years. That's going to change later this summer, but if nothing else comes from this, then I'm in regular communication with B once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week. Then that's really all I need from it. It's just, he's such a good guy, and it's, like these memories that we're talking about, like there's so many different stories that we've been telling on that show that we were both there for those things too, and it's just amazing. Like one time we were at the Flamingo in Kansas City and we were throwing crap. Bob Dodge, I don't know if you've ever met him, but I haven't heard anybody that's heard from him in years and years, but he used to hang out with Kenny a lot. He used to hang out with Bellier and myself a lot. And that first year I was touring, I was kind of following those two around, following Dodge and Bellier around. And we went during the wide open to the Flamingo. I don't know what it's called now, but you know how those places change names. But there was a couple on one end and there was a couple on the other. And the rest of it was all disc golfers, and everybody that was on the rail, there was at least 3 more of us behind them. And I was in there, I was playing too, and Dodge threw the dice for like 45 minutes. And I'm not bullshitting. And it was just like in the movies where you see them, they throw, and then everybody's like, roar, and then another throw, and like they're giving out chips, and you know what I mean? It was absolutely one of those movie scenes, and it was all disc golfers except for 4 people. And like Joel Kelly was there, Kenny was there, Bellier was there, Bob Dodge. I mean, man, there's something like Brinster and Leslie. The Brinsters were there, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I could just start naming names and I could be wrong about a lot of it, but there was probably 25 of us there. And it was just one of those things. It was like the night before the wide open started and we all went out. All of us ended up at the casino, and then we all ended up on that table, and man, it was cool. And it's just another one of those badass memories that you just had to be there to experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I found with storytelling, you just kind of, when you forget, just kind of make up stuff, and just kind of add to it. It's
No,
much
that really
better
happened.
that way.
I swear to God.
My dad wrote a book, and
Well,
half
the
of
neat
his
thing
stuff-
about it was, Mace, is even when I did go to look you up, the first thing that came up was our interview that we did on YouTube years ago that we posted. And that
Nice.
was neat, the fact that that information and those stories are still out there for people to listen to. And this will be out there for them to listen to in perpetuity as well. And that's kind of one of the fun things I enjoy about this show, because with David and the amount of people he knows and the memories that he shared with so many people over the years, it's now being able to get shared. And I think that's the most important thing. I wish we could be better at kind of doing the Ken Burns, kind of encapsulating it in a better form. But that's just not my technique at this time. But I would definitely like to see something that in the future. But it's so hard because disc golf it's all over the country. And there's so many good stories. Like you said, there's so many great golfers we've forgotten about,
Hey, that made me think of something, a question I had earlier. Have you seen what's it called? The Invisible String? It's a movie about disc golf.
No.
It came out, I guess, a couple of years ago. Look it up. I think, is that it? Am I saying that right? Invisible
No, you got it
String?
right.
Anyway,
Invisible
it just
String?
got me thinking, how many of those are out there? Have you seen any kind of historical disc golf documentary type films?
There's definitely a few people that are working on, like Dennis Warston's got one called Flatball, and it's more about frisbee and specifically more about ultimate, but he's way off into disc golf too, and so he's interviewed a lot of people. I hate to admit that I haven't watched it yet, but I don't sit down and watch too much
You
stuff
don't
like
have
that.
time.
I've got some bad habits TV wise, and one of them sports, but I don't know. I haven't watched it yet, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit it.
Well, the reason I ask is because I expected you to say, yeah, and I was in all of them,
No,
because when I watched the Invisible String, I was just all night. I would like bug my kids, if they walk by, hey, I know this guy, I know that
yeah,
guy.
that's cool.
I know
That's
that guy.
really cool.
Crazy John was all over it, in this movie. He was like the star, the things that they did out there on
Well, did you ever see like his like, he was on I don't know what show it was on, but he was on a couple of those. They weren't game shows, but they're like talk shows. Like I think he was on Johnny Carson at one point too. And like they set up a basketball goal and he had a regular lid frisbee, and like they were putting him 10 15 feet further, and he was throwing these putts off the backboard into the basket.
Yeah.
Into the basketball, into the hoop, through the net.
Yeah.
And he got clear on the last row, and he still threw it in. And and that, like, man, I played my first you remember how back in the day at the Wide Open they used to give there'd be 1 star on every hole. There'd be 90 people in the open field, and there'd be at least one epic player on every card your first round. And my first one was Craze, and my second one was Bomberico.
Yeah, nice.
And watching Craze, with that fistful of disc and that water jug, and sometimes a stool and sometimes not, and he would just go and he would manufacture shots, he come up like hit it on occasion where he wasn't true with his shot. He had a tree kick somewhere, and somehow he would pull off the miracle par save, and then he'd go get 5 birdies in a row or something like that at Rosedale. And, I don't think I had 5 birdies in the round. And you're just like looking at him going, damn, I got a long way to go.
Yeah. Seen a handful of those types through the year, and you mentioned a whole bunch of them. Everybody talks about how that there's so much talent nowadays. There was a hell of a lot of talent back in the day too.
Yeah, especially for what we were using.
Yeah, definitely.
Pringles
And we
and
were
some
all,
shit.
we hadn't really gone through the whole process of learning how to throw properly. Really, we all kind of had our own style, I guess. It wasn't really a thing. Now those guys on tour, they all look just alike. They got the mechanics down to a T. The putt's different, but everything else is pretty much the same.
They're putting all that stuff in orbit too, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
I went 2 years ago in 21, I took Zane Letts out there to USDGC with me to kind of give him a different view of everything like that. And hopefully, I was hopeful that, getting out there early and having some time and having some intimate knowledge about the place would give him a little bit of an inside edge on the Monday qualifying. But, that's an animal. That's a really tough thing to pull off, qualifying on Monday at that event. But just like watching him throw the 2 shots. If you happen to watch the champs versus chumps that I was in against Conrad, and he threw it in on hole 12 at USDGC, threw in the shot for 2 for a double eagle. And
that's the one before 888.
Yeah. And Zane piped a shot to that similar, almost exactly the same spot. And in frustration went and grabbed immediately before that disc even landed. He went and grabbed another one and threw the same disc on a rope. And I'm just like, how do we design courses for this? How do we possibly ever make a guy like that can throw like this happy and still keep guys like us happy who can't put things even, into the atmosphere, let alone into orbit? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have any ideas or thoughts on how to make it look better visually on TV? And do you watch any disc golf on TV?
I do watch, although I have to say I watched a little bit early and I kind of haven't really paid attention to it the last like 4 or 5 weeks so much. I just kind of look at the scores and the updates and stuff. But I do watch, and I really I like what I'm seeing, and I like the fact that that there's so many options and there's so many different ways to watch and different things going on. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you're specifically talking about
watching live disc golf coverage, not necessarily, post-production stuff. Mostly what I'm talking about, watching it in the moment, like you do a sporting event, like you would.
I think it's really just a matter of more equipment and having and being not being under not spending too little. You know what I mean? Like if you need equipment, if you need to buy bandwidth, if you've got to have this and that to make the show work, then that's what you need to spend money on, because that's what you're selling. And so from that standpoint, I'd say, I think this probably just time is really what's going to make the big difference. I think they're getting better all the time. I think that I know that some people are working harder than others. And there's some things that I'm really impressed with. Some of the commentary I'm super impressed with, because that they don't know these people, and that are, well, that's not fair either. But depending on the field, there's a lot of times where they don't know the people that are playing as well as some of us might if they're older folks, but they still dig in and they find the information like Chris did, digging into me, and just hunting down those details. And like, for example, Hannah Macbeth, she really takes it seriously when she does do commentary. And like the year that Paul switched from Innova to Discraft, we're in the shack at USDGC setting the whole event up. And, that's an Innova event. You can say whatever you want, but that is definitely, Innova's been putting the fuel in that tank for all 25 years. And she was right there in the pro shop taking advantage of the Wi-Fi, sitting in the side office of it. And I was like, "Hey, Hannah, what are you up to?" And she goes, "Homework." And I go, "What do you mean homework?" And she goes, "I'm doing commentary this week. I got to know what's up." And I don't think everybody takes it that seriously. I think a lot of them do, but I think there's also some people that are totally mailing it in, and that's unfortunate. But that's,
I think as far as the commentary goes, I've got my favorites. I really like Earhart. I think they kind of missed the boat when they put him out in the field, although he's really great at it, being the field guy.
He's solid in that role. He really is. And I think that there's been some times where that role wasn't filled that well.
Yeah, and that's what
Nate Perkins
is
really good at that too.
I was kind of getting, Nate's great. That's kind of what I'm getting at. We need something a little bit more inside that's going on. I know they had some players mic'd up recently and live during a competitive event, like a major or any one of the tours, any of the tours, because that's something I probably wouldn't want to go for if I was playing, but maybe I would.
I wouldn't either, because I guarantee I'll drop about 7 F-bombs before we get to the third hole.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to
Well,
happen.
I'm worried more about it vibing my game. It's like,
Thinking about
okay,
it too
that's the
hard.
one element I didn't practice. And now like I played this round with Yeti a couple weeks in my first sanction or, flex start. And I filmed every shot trying to get an ace with the Lone Star plastic. And that kind of pressure on me, I don't know if it was that or just not playing. My timing was completely off on drives. I made some putts, but I mean, but I guess what I was getting at earlier about the coverage is, the people talking, the commentators, that's huge, but you can always turn it down. I'm just talking about kind of visually how it looks like a guy throwing a frisbee in a park to somebody who's not hip to the game. We know how
Right.
impressive those distances are. We know when he says that was a 500-foot no flex hyzer, we know everything about it. It's like the amazing shot,
That's an amazing shot in
but
itself.
people that don't know the sport, they don't know that. And how do we introduce the sport better to the newbies,
Well, so I think that part of that, one of the things that I think is going to have to happen is that they're going to have to get away from the over the shoulder shots. I think that there's a better perspective than that. I mean, obviously the catch cam's great, but I think you kind of need, I think you need somebody in front of the catch cam, but on the other side of the thrower, so that you can see him from the front, not see him over their shoulder. I think that'll make a big difference. And then obviously the venue and having the knowledge of the venue, like back in the day when they had disc golf TV, that was, God, what was that, like 92, 93, or no, excuse me, 02, 03, maybe 04, somewhere in there. I think it was early 2000s. But these guys, I ended up jumping on with them because I'd done, man, like my whole life was TV shoots in the 90s almost. And, and I understood what they were looking for, and I knew these courses. And so they actually gave me free commercials on the beginning and the end of their shows if I would go like on the skins matches or the final nines on these events, and I'd put them in the right spots. Like they had me drive them in the cart. They'd have one guy at the tee, but then I would go and put him in a really good spot where we were out of danger from being hit, but they were still in a good spot where they had a great look. And I think that makes a big difference. I think that's way better perspective than over the shoulder, and especially if you're trying to sell it to people that aren't us. Like all of us are going to be fine with looking at it over the shoulder, but I think that maybe that might be something that turns it. It's hard to say though.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm loving watching.
Oh, and me too.
I'm loving being a disc golf fan. Every weekend.
Yeah, me too.
I love it. I'm just trying to think of ways to kind of make it more exciting. I think they've really done some cool stuff with that drone company that they've hired, and whoever's doing the drone footage. And I really think that we can't get enough drone footage. It's not going to be cheesy. It really helps the perspective.
And it's a perspective that you couldn't have without a blimp before,
Yeah, it's like having a blimp all over the course at any time, and that makes it really valuable. And I think once we get over the whole fact that it's going to be noisy, and I haven't seen it from the player's perspective. I was at Texas State's and I didn't see it then, but I watched it full on the coverage. I was like, that's awesome, man.
We had for Monday for the distance qualifying takes place on Monday at USDGC as well as the Monday qualifying. And this year, for the first time, they had me go and play music and MC that as well as the showcase at the end of the event. And it was really cool for me because I got a chance to have those European players actually, not in a hurry, not in a rush. All right, we got to be on in 30 seconds. How do I say your name again? And so that really helped me out a lot. And then I got to meet a bunch of people that I didn't know before that I knew their names, but I didn't know who they were. And like I made a big point to go and introduce myself, and they're like, I know you. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know you. And we don't know each other really because like we've never even had lunch together. We haven't done anything together. We never played around. You just know who I am because you've come here all these years or whatever. And I don't want to be like, when someone comes up to me, like if you show up out there and go, hey, who's that person? I want to try to do my best to tell you. but it ain't like it used to be when I knew 80% of the people. Now I only know 20.
I know.
The other thing that was really cool about that distance thing was they had a guy there filming with a drone. And I guess I don't know that much about it, but how it all works, but I guess they just locked that thing in. Like they would have it behind him and I'd be, or her, and I'd be behind them. And so I could really hear it. It was up above us by about 30 feet and it was just waiting. And as soon as the disc went, he had it locked in on that. And it was amazing. It was following, but the guys were complaining a little bit about being distracted at first. And, it's like, okay, well, you still got more qualifying shots. Get used to it because it's going to be there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from somebody who's played on the tour if it's ever really bothered them, if anything's weird's ever happened, he got stuck in a tree or something like that. I want to hear some funny drone stories from the tour. It'd be nice. But I do think it helps. It helps the viewing experience immensely, even more so than just cutaways. I'm talking about perspectives on the shot. If a guy throws an ante, I love seeing it from that perspective up where
for
the
sure
shot would be.
Yeah, and especially if you can get to a point where it's not distracting. I mean, that's definitely cool. And it's funny that did you ever play national doubles at Round Rock?
I never did. I played the course, but never played the doubles. Back
in the day, it's funny that you showed me that picture of me with the blue bonnets around me or whatever. I don't know where that came from, but Round Rock Old Sellers Park used to just be covered in in blue bonnets during the spring, and we'd always play national doubles there. And when we first went out there, there's like that stone building at the front where they have the RV parking. There was no baseball field. There was no houses around that place. I mean, it was us and this one dude with a remote control boat out in the lake. And there was nothing else going on out there. And then a couple of years later, they had this, they set up that area where the RC planes fly.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to the point where they had those RC planes that you couldn't just put in the back of a car with a hatchback. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then they had a second course. They had the south course and the north course. Temporary course wasn't anything like the original, but it allowed them to get more teams in the event, and that was a really, really popular event. So this one year, there's like at least two teams on every hole on all 36 holes. And there was probably 30 people flying those airplanes. And it was it was like going to a international soccer event. Like when the ball's in play, those horns are just like, like we heard these planes all day Saturday.
Oh my God.
All day Saturday. And so we're over, like the South Course played all the way up behind where the ballpark is, and along that there's like a waterway through there, like a creek. And so we'd play along that way and come back around. Well, there was this one point where in the afternoon, this plane kept getting closer. We were over there close by the ball, like at the far south end of that course. And then I was like, man, that plane sure is getting close. Like this doesn't sound far away at all. And then it was like, and it hit a tree. It crashed into a tree. Like it was like a mower hitting a bush, and so like literally this went across the course from the crash site back to the other end of the course where the people were flying those planes, and it was applause. Like everybody, all the disc golfers clapped, and then when it got to the other end, you hear this coming back. You like at the top of his line. He was so damn mad. And then like within 10 minutes later, he drove through the middle of the course to go back there and rescue his plane. But it's like pre-drone, and apparently what happened, he ran out of batteries in his controller and the plane still had gas.
It's on autopilot.
So there's who knows where that story came from for you.
I like the clapping. That's a good story.
It was and it just happened that way, like everybody was happy that was over, and then he wasn't happy at all. Pretty crazy.
That's awesome. Good story. So we have more drone stories coming for you. We need to get a drone guy in here. Here's some drone stories. Yeah. Well, this is awesome, man.
Amazing.
Thanks for spending some time with us tonight.
Yeah,
Mace,
sure, man.
Let's make it a regular. regular thing, and then we can tie together all the history that we've learned, and we can write a book.
Yeah, just let me know. I'm down. You know, I mean, obviously, I'm going to be a little pinched for time at certain times because we're doing our deal once a week too. But there's plenty of room. I mean, like everybody's got things to talk about, and I mean, we're just barely getting ours off the ground, and you know, it's just a lot of fun, man. I really enjoy talking about this stuff and telling stories, and then hearing stories too. I love asking people questions about things that I know a little bit about, and then they just spill the beans, and but it's also really been interesting too, where we're starting to get to some people that I don't know that well. Like if I was going to have, say for instance, if we wanted to invite Storcon, like I don't have any common experiences with him. Not like Dan Ginley, you know, I mean, like watching The Price is Right in his house, and like it's just all that, like his son, knowing his son when he was 4 at the 06 or the 96 Worlds, and now knowing him, he's like in his mid-20s, and just seeing what he's turned into, and you know, and just all these different things that been in the right place and been real lucky to experience. And yeah, I'll tell you about it if you listen.
Yeah,
That's the best thing about these stories. I mean, I wasn't trying to go there with the story that I got from you this evening, but once again,
that's all right, dude.
Amazing.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's kind of what my point leads to, is that you really sometimes never know what you find. And I have found that many times with a lot. Serenity Madison, go watch that one, that interview with her. I had no earthly idea about her background and the things that she was, she spoke about. And I find that oftentimes it's how you end up finding out about these people. And it was neat to find that out about you. It wasn't intentional whatsoever, just by happenstance. But it's an amazing story that we all got to listen to. And I'm so proud of those things. And that's what I love about this show, is sometimes it's the things that I don't mean to do whatsoever that just kind of give us little gems here and there. And that'll be one that, like I said, people will be able to know that story forever now. You know, they take the time to listen to what you have to say.
You know, like if you look at that crew, I mean, I don't think Levon Wolf was in that picture, but he was there that day. Phil Arthur is one of the guys. Jonathan Poole, before his beard turned gray, was the closest person to you in that picture. And I mean, it's just like Brian Schweberger's there, and Ashley as well. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I get emotional about certain things, and it doesn't bother me. That's just, Craig was a great guy.
No, I loved it. I loved every minute of that. It just would, like I said, though, however, it wasn't ever my intent. I wasn't my direction, nor did I know that that's where that was going to go. Yeah.
So here's
let
me tell you my Craig Levia story. I thought of one. I didn't know there was a connection, but now I remember hole 10 at USDGC. I was warming up on the hole probably for the first time to see it. And if you know that hole, if you can throw it 450, you know,
you can run right at it.
You can go for it and get a pretty easy eagle look, you know, or an easy birdie, you know, not laying up. And anyway, he was over there putting on that basket, and I was yelling at him because I'm teeing off, and he's like, finally he turns around, "You're not going to hit me." And I threw one right into the basket. I mean, not in the basket, but right where he was standing. I was like, okay, I'm throwing, dude. But that was my one run in with Levia, and he was, I don't know if he was playing or but I knew who he was. I'd heard about this. He wrote epic lefty
phenom.
Yeah.
Well, you know, another person that's in that category, the lefties, like Scott Martin, man, I've never seen anybody throw turnovers with a rock like he does. Like they almost look the same as a righty shot with a rock, you know, and just his control and his command. And he was in that same class he definitely was in the hunt every time he went to USDGC, and in the top 10, I think, all of those times, but I could be wrong about that. But he was definitely a contender out there. And so was Greg.
Yeah.
Mace, it's been awesome this evening. Before, I don't know if Hemi got something else. I do apologize, Hemi. I was going to have Mace. Any shout outs or any thank yous or anybody you'd like to thank before we go? Any sponsors you'd like to shout out to?
Well, I don't really have any sponsors or anything, but you know, if you want to come check out our website, we definitely got some good stuff going on there. I want to say, I mean, I've been saying this all year long, that if you've ever thought about going to the U.S. Disc Golf Championship as to be a spectator and take a vacation, this is going to be the year to do it. It's the 25th anniversary, and it's going to be off the charts. And if you want to tune into our show tomorrow night, we'll be talking with Jonathan a little bit about that, about what's going on and what's already planned and what's in the works. But I would not discount if you like watching golf on TV, on the videos and the streaming services that are available now and everything, you really should go ahead and spend the money and make some reservations to get a hotel room for yourself and go out there, because you're not going to regret it. And if you don't want to just do that the whole time, there's I don't even know. I'm going to go out on a limb and say within a half an hour, there's probably 20 to 30 courses. And if you want to go 40 minutes, there's at least double that. And man, Charlotte area has got great golf if you want to get some golf in and want to get some spectator in. But we've really got some cool stuff coming at the USDGC this year. So you should definitely, green's good.
We could call up TJ, Chris, and I'm sure he would host us on some of those courses out there, some of those awesome, amazing courses out there.
Yeah, I've been saying this for years, and people really are starting to do it now, but you won't regret it. You're not gonna, it's not something that you're gonna just experience just going anywhere. Jonathan's been laying the groundwork for all this stuff you see on the Disc Golf Pro Tour for years. And I'm not saying that he's the only one, but his vision's been there at that level and beyond long before any of this other stuff came into reality.
That's exactly how I tell people who don't know the history of the USDGC, is that before the Pro Tour, there was one event that was super special. Now it's all the Pro Tours, and it's not going to overshadow what the USDGC does. It's still the tournament, in my opinion, and the challenge, and a lot of the courses that they're creating now on the Pro Tour are pretty much just emulating what they've been doing at USDGC for 25 years.
Man, that opportunity, I've learned so much working under Harold and Jonathan in that event, and I can't say enough. I wanted to think, thanks to Jonathan Poole and thanks to Harold Duvall for allowing me to continue to be there.
Yeah, congrats.
Well, Brian, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on this evening. Like Hemi said, we're going to have to do this on a more regular basis. That's for sure.
Well, I'm down with that, man. I can be a friend of the show.
Yeah.
All
definitely.
right. Well, you are a friend of the show.
Exactly.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I really enjoy it. And obviously, I got plenty of the stories to tell, and it's, it doesn't bother me at all. I really enjoy it. So thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
You
Thanks,
bet.
man.
We'll catch up again.
I don't care if people didn't like your impressionistic posters. I thought they were pretty interesting.
I like them.
I get in those rabbit holes sometimes, and I think it's neat looking, and then I have to go back and look at it. And y'all are both artists.
He's got to listen to it.
Sometimes we look at
Stand
it.
there and own it, dude. You don't got to make excuses. Stand there and own it.
He's got to listen to Elizabeth, though. He's got to get it by Elizabeth. That's the problem.
Although she loved it. She did like it a lot, but y'all two I didn't hear anything from either one of y'all. Didn't even say yay or nay. And I was like, that didn't go over well. Because normally if I put them out, people are like, oh, that's good or funny. But I said, you know what? I don't know if that worked. But I think the suits looked pretty good on you anyway. You wore those very well. And
yeah, well, one of my buddies
on,
from high school is threatening to buy me one of those suits now. And I was like, you're going to be mad because I'm not going to wear it.
Well, I also like the artwork hats. If people don't know, that's your blown glass artwork that I put on top of your head. I thought it fit you very, very well.
All those pieces, man. Yeah, I was like, oh, look at this, and I'm fine with it. That's your expression, and that's one of the things too. That one of the things that my favorite project in college, and I won't tell you another story after this one, but one of my favorite projects in college was I made the sculpture in that same class where I didn't want to sit with the old people. And it was slabs. It was a clay class. And so the assignment was make something with slabs. And so I made this corner of the room with a picture window with a bunch of squares and all this different stuff. And that was my particular project. But the thing about that project that I liked so much was we showed all of our pieces in one of the galleries at the school there. And then the Comp 1 students came in and wrote a composition. They got to pick the piece that they wanted to use, and there was like 30 of them, 25 or 30 of them. And they got to pick this piece they wanted to write on, and they told the story that they came up with based on that particular piece of art. And there was, when I went in there, when I finally got to go to the gallery and see it, there was like 25 compositions that I had to read, that were there for me to read. And it was really interesting to see who got it and what the ones that didn't get my vision out of it, what they came up with. It was just amazing. And then to read the work, to read the little composition, it was really awesome. And that, the reason I wanted to tell you that is that you just never know where it's coming from or what you're going to see that's just going to really turn your eye and just like, or give you your next inspiration.
And that's why I think it's important, and especially with music. For me, it's with music a lot. You just have to, like, I'll play something for a writer. Yesterday, I played him a song, and he was listening. He was going, "Has that been released?" And I was like, "To you just now." Yeah. He's like, "You need to put that on TikTok, whatever." And then he has these ideas for that, and it's funny because that particular song, I'm not sure why I played it. I guess it had a little message, but everybody's perspective is completely different than you could ever imagine, And so the thing to do is just to not judge what you do and just roll through it.
Oh yeah. Do not point out the flaws in your work either. Because I might not like the color that you like, and I might not like the color that Chris likes, but you guys might fall in love with something. So I put it out there, and if it rides for a while, then I guess I was right. If it doesn't, if it goes away, then they were right. And and it's not about being right. It's just about what makes you happy. I mean, you got to make yourself happy, or nobody's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I tell people all the time that may be one of the funnest things that I do is putting together these little memes, these little ideas and questions and the posters. I think out of all the things that I do, that's I truly get the most enjoyment out of that, because it is, to me, like doing art. I feel like I'm being an artist in what I do. So I enjoy it. Not near what you two gentlemen do. I'm not trying to say that, but
just don't ever discount what you're doing. I mean, you've come a long way already, and that's definitely a big improvement. Like, we're not doing that kind of stuff yet. I mean, we just started using a script recently.
What's that? What are you talking about? We used to do that.
If you're going to interview people you don't know, you're going to have something written down.
Well, Chris obviously does, and I appreciate you, Chris, moving the thing along like you've been doing with the pictures and everything. It makes it.
Well, you give me the ideas too, Hemi. I tell you all the time, I'm good at point and click. You push me to a certain direction, I'm good with directions, and so Hemi will give me about 3 or 4 different things to kind of focus on, and it allows the rest of it to flow. So it's a teamwork. I always say that's very teamwork.
Well, the ones that you magically pick out, like Yeti wanting to be a pro wrestler, who knew that, and it wasn't even said anywhere. You just kind of intuitively knew that's a gift, that's a true gift. So yeah, keep it up. I
appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. We better close this up for this Zoom call. I think I only had it till 10:30. I think we go this late, obviously. So, but I do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You have a good night.
Yeah, y'all thanks, too. Mace.
You bet. Go Stars.
Go Stars. All right.
All right, man. I'll talk to you guys soon. Let me know when you want to do it again.
All right, man. Good luck tomorrow on your show, and you guys tune in. Oh,
I'll be watching.
Man. And is that on YouTube, Facebook? What's the format?
So Facebook Live is where we're streaming it right now. I'm gonna, if I get through some of this other stuff, I'm gonna dump. I got a bunch of archive stuff. We have the Good Times Hour on YouTube as well. So but we're just streaming it live. We're doing webinars and we're streaming it live off of Facebook for now.
I noticed too that you invite people to join. Is that anybody or?
Usually we just get a guest a week, kind of like you're doing.
Okay, because I saw that invite and I was like, there's one podcast guy I watch that does that on Saturday night. He does it one night a week, and he's a daily show, and then one night of the week he just says, cattle call me, and then fields it, and it's pretty interesting. It never gets stuck like you would imagine. So somebody
Probably
out
never
there,
gets stale either.
yeah. So, and you don't have to let everybody in, and you can always cut them off.
Oh yeah, and you retain control in that sense too, right?
Yeah, so I think that'd be kind of interesting sometime down the line. Do a little free for all, see what happens.
We can try it out.
Yeah,
Freestyle.
yeah.
All right.
All right. We'll let you know if we do that. Thanks, Mace.
All right, cool guys. Have a good
love
evening.
you, man. I'm
right, man.
proud of you,
Too.
man. Keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Y'all too, definitely.
All right. Peace.
Good one. Later.
All right. Good night. Hey, Hemi, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up pretty quick. We like to say, as we always end this show, folks, go play disc golf and throw something in the air. Hemi, hopefully tomorrow, if you're feeling good, let's go throw something in the air. I'm going to hit you up. John hit me up a little bit while the show was going on and wanted to know if you wanted to throw.
Oh, hey,
But I know
John, sorry I
sometimes-
didn't answer your hockey. I saw your hockey comment, but thanks for tuning in and listening. Yeah, let's go play. I'm ready
All
to
right.
go play some golf.
All right. Well, we can't leave the show without Mikey rolling around. So before we y'all have a good night. Until
Bye.
next week, go play disc golf and throw something in the air. All right. Good night.